So it's 2 days after the naming of the captain of the Nameless and the ruins of Fiesthymer. In that time, you've seen to the wounded and shored up the places to house the twin crews of Jarl Erik and Captain Gunnaldr. The wounded have been seen to as best they can. Preparations have begun to be made by way of ransacking the stores of Fiesthymer to supply the next ranging of the Nameless and the Spaebrand, the rope bearer of Jarl Erik, your ally Gunnaldr, and you and your captains have gathered late this afternoon before the evening fires as a rider has come on a short, shaggy garron, a warrior by his look and his bearing, who's given up his weapons and been allowed admittance into council of Erik and yourselves. He puts his braceleted fist over his chest. Captains, lords, I am Scooty. I am Jarl Erik's man. I have ridden hard with news from my lord, if you wish to hear it.
Tell us this news. Come.
Thor smiles upon my lord, for he has convinced Yngvi, Jarl north of this place, to join him and swear to Gunland, and so can be counted our friend in our endeavours. My lord wishes me to tell you that he intends to ride across the lands, northeast, to strike at Scarison's heart at Dommervoller. He invites you might like to do the same.
Ah, yes. Yes, we shall. The Nameless will join. Thank you for riding so hard.
Scooty smiles at that and places his hands now down at his side. Erik shifts his weight in his seat next to you, cagey as ever, and he's scowling as he wonders at the possibility of that and is not so careless with his assent. How many men does your lord possess? Oh, 2 good crews, my lord. Erik nods, positively mulling that, and shifts his gaze to those others, either seated at the table about the two of you, or standing in the near shadows beyond that in the great hall here. I should have to think upon it. Come, have food and drink and hospitality. Let me discuss your lord's words with my friend here. Honoured lord, says Scooty, and he'll go over to where some of the other warriors are, and they'll move aside to let him seat, and he'll gesture, raising a cup to them and to the head table, before just engaging in light gossip with them. An affable enough man. I wonder at that. What say you, Gunnaldr?
At striking Dommervoller. Or at Captain Erik's reaction.
This is Captain Erik, who asked this of you.
Oh, sorry. I think it is an opportunity. This was the next step I was thinking. Many refugees from Fiesthymer fled that way. Maybe they made it up to Dommervoller.
Mayhaps, but Sudbrand is closer, and that domain of Thegn Kolskegg may have been their closest port of call.
Perhaps you are right. Either way, if the cowards who fled, they're not warriors, if they end up in Dommervoller or not, if they are where we strike, will not make a difference. They're not fighters, it seems.
It's not their fighters that worry me, but the holdfasts and the differences between the two. Dommervoller is a great crag jutted up out of the sea by Asgeir and all his daughters together. The town must be breached by a harbour, and the holdfast there of Jarl Skarrison has survey of all endeavour that's carried out in those waters. But Sudbrand is ripe for the taking, a weaker prize, and swollen now with so many thralls and refugees of Fiesthymer. And he puts his like thin hands or fingers up on his chin to grasp it as he kind of just looks about the hall, indulging his thoughts a moment.
Well, we could attack from sea. What do you think, Jarl Erik? Take the easier prize or go for glory?
I would take the easier prize. We don't have men to lose. I have 30. You have just beyond that? He says half questioningly. If we are to lose a dozen each more, we could not sail as we might wish. Scaling walls mean losing men. I will consult the gods, he says, with a rare joking manner, and rises to head off towards the privy. One of his warriors will go with him, and a couple of warriors note it, but just go back to either their fare or drink or to the gossip with the newcomer, Scooty. To leave you at the presence of your chief retainers.
Yeah. He would gather the attention of Hangatir and Ira and Hrafngeir. And I think he would be enthusiastic. It's been a couple of days since he was voted in as captain. I'm sure he's at least shared with these few and a couple of his other closer advisors that he had his eyes set on the larger prize of Domrivoller, and speaking with a bit somewhat naive enthusiasm of taking such a much better fortified prize. And I'm sure Hangatir at the very least has tried to talk some sense into him over the last day or two.
Yeah, I don't know if he would have.
Well, yeah, true.
Pretty exciting, the idea of taking this place. I think he would say the smaller prize is a prize we will definitely take. We won't have to share the spoils with other crews. And if all of the people from here, other places, have fled to either Domrivoller or, what was it, Sudbrand, there'll be thralls to take and loot to take, and it'll be our place. And if we join with the other crews, depending on how many warriors he has and how hard they fight, we may come out much weaker than we started. And you don't need warriors to defend somewhere with walls. You just need people that can throw rocks or sticks or anything, push ladders away. A man can die falling from a height the same as he can die from a sword. I think, although I'm not worried, I think if I was you, I'd go for the little one.
Too, that it can't be underestimated. That to join with other crews means not only a share of the spoils, but a share of the reputation, a share of everything. Will not be your name that they call as the victor. Over a place like that will be whoever the most status Jarl is. They will claim that it was their army that won. that they were the one who took the seats, that they have the share of the glory. If we go on our own to take somewhere else, the prize is all our own and anything that comes with it.
It's also likely that they can't take Gunnar without us, or else they wouldn't have sent this man here to ask. They probably need us to do that job, or they'll suffer an unacceptable amount of dead. So why not take our prize, and then when we have it, go and help them. If they take it in the meantime, he'll just sort of shrug and then like spit onto the ground. And they'll lose a lot of men. Then he'll be in charge anyway.
You speak wisely, giving me much to think on. Hrafnir, the approach to Dommervoller is covered with thick wood. I was thinking, before speaking with Jarl Erik, I was thinking the approach there, you might be able to help, but it seems approaching from the sea. Jarl Erik seems to think this will be the better chance at victory. And fewer dead, fewer Gunlander dead. If we were to take a smaller prize first. And he looks down at his at Hrafnir's hands that he knows have captured much game and fed, kept their home Kaldum in Gunland alive through recent winters, and recently these two young men, Gunnaldr and Hrafnir, have both taken their first lives of men. And that's something I'm sure they've shared over the last couple of days. Would you lead the charge with us, taking a smaller prize?
In the hunt, you study, you query, you measure the cost, you strike in a death blow. Dommervoller is not a death blow. It's valorous, but there's no guarantee. I think we should take the smaller prize.
Tighten our grip.
I think the others.
Here you go.
I think the others said it best when they need us. Either they will wait or they will lose.
I think this is true. And Nico, I think you said the numbers before, but would we, as just the crew of the Nameless, without Jarl Erik, be able to take the smaller one? Or is that going to be risk of losing too many men as well?
There's the risk of losing men, which would interfere with your potential sailing.
Yeah.
With not having enough crewmen and such.
Yeah.
But if factoring into Orn, son of Oleg, led that raid on Fiesthymer 2 days back that you guys repelled, right, and butchered a lot of warriors there. So you can imagine what stronger defenses there might have just been cut down a bit by you guys. And obviously can't compete with you in a naval sense. So in that you have the possibility to lose numbers, but a high chance of seizing the place. If you had yourself and Eric's crew, 2 crews, 60 or more, the likelihood that they'd have a garrison that could repel that is low. It would kind of be a sure thing to risk the gods.
Mm. So it is agreed. I will speak with Jarl Erik. And we will first strike the smaller town and tighten our hold on East Asblot. And then we can join up with Jarl Longshank and his men, and if they wait, and we can take Dommervoller together. But I think you are right, he says to Angatir and Ira. They've come to us because they need us. I'm sure they will wait while we strengthen our position.
And the more that we take, the more the people of Dunnervalor will hear. They will know that their friends are dying, that their lands are being taken. Will sow fear, and fear is the enemy of victory.
More than that, there's a Carl in this. Sorry, what's it? Sudbrand. There's a Carl in Sudbrand, and if we take him alive and we bring him Dommervoller, maybe the Jarl will pay for him. And we can parlay and not have to have all these sons of Odin die for no reason.
Mm.
Although I think it might
think
be
you're right
unlikely.
too.
We killed his son. He would likely be difficult to speak to.
Mm. Have you met someone who did not enjoy speaking with me yet?
Hangatir doesn't get the joke. He is about to respond, and then processes it. I see. Everyone likes you.
Not entirely everyone, he says as he looks around, trying to spy Gunmagn and his cronies. Only half of our men voted for me, Hangatir. But I'm their captain. They don't need to like me as friend.
Perhaps any spoils we gain in this conquest will appease them.
We need to make spoils so we can pay the mercenaries. Don't forget.
Aye. Sudbrand will have spoils. And much easier in the taking than Dommervoller. That will be our next prize.
At this, Carl Eric returns from the privy, and guards close the shutter behind him. He makes his way up, dragging his cloak through the threshing, and detritus takes up his seat in the midst of you all.
What news from the gods?
They were non-committal and disclosed little, he says.
No movement. Too much
And what
of
of
the rich
you?
meat.
What will it be, Captain? Sense or glory,
Why not both? Jarl Eric.
Oft you cannot have the two.
Well, I shall find glory in Sudbrand. Even if you do not seek it, or think it too small a prize.
Oh, not too small at all, he says. We shall
But
seize it as we seize Fiesthymer, though it will be laden filled with thralls. We can send them back to our lands, mine and your lady Gunilla's.
Aye.
We need wealth to flow back to our lands. Of course, you know that we can request reinforcements to fill the seats of the oarsmen gone to Ran or to Corpse Hall.
Yes, of course. And Gunnaldr would know, is it pretty standard practice, I guess, in that case then, to send just a crew back like that while the main force of our crew stays over here?
Yeah, definitely.
Ferry back thralls and that, yeah.
Unless there's already an existing supply. I'm not sure, not caravan, because it's on ships. Convoy. The supply convoy or whatever, I guess. You wouldn't need to do that, but that's what he's hinting at anyway.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
And seems he's obviously keen on seizing Sudbrand, the closer town, first.
Aye. So when shall we strike Sudbrand?
We should not tarry longer than we have. Those who have not healed or cannot sail should stay to hold this prize while we seek out the second. We should go by our ships in case we are overwhelmed or surprised by the Jarl, and can head back here as we need. And he like waves his hand as if at like a stink, and like looks over briefly at Scooty, talking and laughing with a couple of the men, and says, "They march overland. It seems a folly and a risk to leave their ships so close to unknowns and at Ingvi's lands. I like it not, and no, not enough of it." He says he's always cautious. He's always pessimistic and cagey. Like this, I guess you'd take it with a bit of salt, as Black Eagle and One Eye did before you.
Aye. Leaving valuable things such as our ship unattended does not seem wise, I agree. But perhaps we can sail further upshore to Sudbrand. And then I think he kind of this is kind of an admission that he knows only roughly. It doesn't have a physical map of the area on his possession, so he is sort of drawing from his memory, I think, from Jarl Gunnar's household. Can we approach Sudbrand by sea?
Aye, and the better for it. I think along the coast we will be seen in advance some ways, and so it will be the same upon our rope bears, but they are much swifter than we at the march, and we can still surprise them from the sea.
Aye.
That their scion, Orn, and his men did not return to them, by now they must think him vanquished, and so will fear to go through the woods towards us, and may expect a march there. All the better that we might sail and risk Ran's jealousy.
At the mention of the fear element, Gunnaldr nods and looks knowingly to Hangatir and Ira, I think, who both were sort of speaking of that.
Well, summon Loki over before he sows too much mischief. He'll gesture towards Scooty and kind of shovels the responsibility of dealing diplomatically with Longshanks' visitor to you.
I think he would just, rather than going over to see him, he would call him up. Scooty, is it?
Yes, my lords, as my father named him for himself.
Welcome to Fiesthymer.
Thanks, my lord. I find it well here within, though without it is wanting. It seems Odin loves you, and you've had much victory here. Skull, he'll drain the rest of his ale horn and give it to one of the thralls.
Skull, drain his horn as well. So, your captain, your Jarl Longshank, when is he wanting to strike?
As swiftly as we might, my lords. He fears the snows, and there's no shame in that. The march will go hard upon us, on land or sea, when the true storms of winter begin. And he'd rather feast in Dormavola when the snow is thick than the paltry holdfasts he so far has. And he kind of looks around at that, kind of intimating that you have the same.
As would I. I'm sure their hearts are warm and their walls are tall.
Aye, tall indeed, my lord.
And not easy in the taking. How many men does your Jarl have? Even with Jarl Ingvi knelt?
Near 100 men, armed and with shields and mail. We have horses from Ingvi's stables. They are of Dropbanum line. They'll supply us from here to there, so we might move there inland toward them. They will be strong in the bay, long as it's been the source of their power. And they control the coastline down by Sudbrand, so they will not expect our approach from the west. But it will take us a week or more. My lords wishes to tell you he will march with or without you, and bid me, my lords, before I hear your answer, give you this in friendship, and whatever your decision may be, until produce 2 silver talks and hand them over to one of the warriors who will gift them out between yourself and Eric.
Your Carl is generous. Thank you for these gifts. Pass along my thanks. From myself and Jarl Eric.
I will, my lords, and your reply?
We will join him after we get ourselves a better position as he has. It seems he may have had a head start on us, getting through and punching all the way through to Jarl Ingby's lands, and doing such good work getting that Jarl to kneel. Loyal to Gunland, I'm sure he now is. But as you say, he gestures around, our own first prize has been more meager. We must consolidate first. We will strike Sudbrand.
Why not?
We have already...
Hang it here, like, Will walk over and put his hand on the man's shoulder. Why not wait? There's no rush. You'll lose lots of men in the taking of it without us. So why not wait? Surround Dommervoller, kill any that they send out for hunting, and wait. And then we'll come, and I'll smash down the gate with my hands.
I do not doubt it, son of Odin. I do not. He smiles and returns kind of the embrace, but then in a way tries to wriggle free of it, but obviously cannot. And he says, I cannot confess to give you answers to these questions from my lords, but safe to say they fear the race with winter. And well, you may tarry, they will not, my lords.
Young man, always so impatient. Well, we won't be there. If they want to wait a week, then we will be there. Many of your friends won't have to die if I'm there. And that's their decision to make, I suppose.
Yes, Lord.
Oh, forgive me. I have not given a returned gift. He rummages around it. Maybe he's got a bit of a pile of some of the best sort of takings from the Fiesthymer loot, and he pulls out that antlered helm, which the
Thegn Kolskegg.
Yes, Thegn Kolskegg, who was the leader of Fiesthymer when we first took it, and he turns it in his hands admiringly. A gift for a gift, and he holds it out to Scooty. Perhaps
he raises an eyebrow near imperceptibly, but then smiles graciously. My thanks, my lord. I will give it to them.
Of course, the decision is up to Carl Longshank, but as Hanketyr says, if he wishes to wait a few days, we can strike together, lose fewer men. But he can wage his war, we will wage ours.
All for Jarl Gunnar, my lord, he'll say, smiling. Very well, I will return with my lord's decision. He'll gesture to you, and Eric giving him, I guess, space to interject, but Eric does not, kind of merely nods in agreement with what you've said, to Scooty, and he'll bow at that and retreat back to his table unless you have any further words for him.
No, I think you just let him go at this point.
We're all fighting the same war, Gunnaldr. All of us, on every side. Don't forget.
Thank you, Hangatir. And what of the Asbloters? They're not fighting the same war?
They're fighting the same war as we are. The only one that matters.
And now he finally gets the meaning.
Men will be jealous and they'll fight over which holdfast that they control and which piece of land that they own, but in the end it's all nothing. It's temporary. You can't take it with you to Corpse Hall. What you can take with you is how men remember you. It's just something to think about.
Something you have thought long about, I'm sure.
It's the only thing I think about.
You've already carved yourself a memory into the minds of everyone you have met, everyone who has seen you across the battlefield. He becomes a little more humble, I suppose, and reverential as he often is in Hangatir's presence. I must think on my own how I will be remembered. Thank you, Odinson.
When the time comes, you want men to either speak very well of you or speak very poorly of you. But the middle is no good. They should hate you or they should love you. But you don't want them to tolerate you.
Any man can stand out in the memory of someone that's met them, that's seen them with their own eyes. The story of a great warrior is when you are remembered by those who have never seen you. They hear your name and your story and can bring a picture of you into their mind, even if they've never seen it.
When you get to the hall, you want 100, 200, 500 men shoving others aside to make space for you. You don't want to get there and have it just be one person. You want to be able to choose where you sit, and it should be near the top, by glad of war.
Gunnaldr smiles at that description because he can just picture. He's always just been able to picture Hangatir when he finally goes to Corpse Hall, just being greeted by thunderous cheers and welcomed by all of those he's slain, and having so many valiant dead holding a seat for him. And in Gunnaldr's mind, in a lot of ways, he's still that boy that was saved by Hangatir from the burning farmstead. This is why I surround myself with wise folks such as yourselves and friends who will tell me true, he says as he looks at Hrafngeir, when I'm not going far enough or when I go too far. I have much to think on and much of a mark to make on this crew and on this land and on this world.
Sudbrand.
I think it will be some time yet before I would do without your counsel.
I think the good ones, the great ones, always take counsel. No matter how great they become, Sudbrand will be your first test as a leader, so it needs to stand out, it needs to go well, it needs to be memorable. We need to not lose lots of men. We need to kill lots of theirs. So we want to.
As you said earlier,
you go.
half the crew did not vote for you. That half will be watching you carefully. Every decision you make will be judged harshly, every consequence blamed upon you. You'll have to carefully consider not only the crew, but everyone here. Any failure will be yours alone in their eyes. Well, it would have been different if only their vote for captain had been made, is what they'll say. You'll need to remember that.
Such wisdom. For one so young. I suppose. It's the wisdom of the All-Father speaking through you, no?
That's where my wisdom comes from, certainly. It's certainly not from my head. How far is Sudbrand?
2 days sail if the winds are fair and the Rand's not too feisty, says Eric. But he says it in like not in like an informative way, in like a grumbly logistic type way.
We should send some now, immediately. Rafki
I agree.
and the others
Oh, sorry.
to scout and to see what they can find out about the place and who is there and how many and where the entrances are and where we can strike from and what we can do. And then we all arrive at once. That would be my approach.
Gunnaldr's nodding along like, oh yes, of course, that all makes so much sense. Like, fuck, I should have thought of this, and it should be me saying this, you know. He's kind of got that look, still very much of the pupil, I suppose, under Hangatir.
Had it been mentioned if we got a rest? Sorry.
No, you go.
2 days have gone by, so you had at least 2 short rests.
Okay,
Thank
you.
Cool. We should make a sacrifice to Ran.
Many, he says. A goat and a woman. The prettiest thrall, he says with like casuality.
Very good.
My own godsworn feasts with Odin in the taking of this place, but I'll have one of the thralls and a fine beast brought to your godsworn.
My thanks. The sooner the better, I think. As you say.
Indeed. We should appease Ran before we appease our wives, and he takes his cup at that.
We should send people immediately, though. Those who can scout and discover. They should.
She is as salty as they get.
Yeah, he drains it, puts it in its brace, and nods to his warriors to attend him, and he'll rise and say, I have preparations to make. Our scouts should leave as soon as they can, and we sail tomorrow after dawn if the weather is clear. I'll look for you then, and the Nameless. Good evening, men.
Rest well. We'll fight tomorrow. Sail.
And he'll go to make his preparation.
Is it it's nighttime, right?
Late afternoon.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The intention of Scooty being that he would stay here overnight and leave at dawn, unless commanded to go now. Be able to arrive at like 4 or so in the afternoon.
Yeah. No, Gunaldr would make sure there's somewhere to sleep arranged for him, even if it's just a particular section of floor. Raffengir, how many men would you need to scout?
2, 3 at the most.
Who would you pick? Have you got to know much of the crew yet?
I'm afraid whether between my conflict with Jarl Ericsson's men and anything that Gunmagn has had to say, most of them have left me be. It matters not.
I would have you make out tonight. Get an early start. Scout out to Sudbrand. See what we're dealing with. As Hangatir says, actually no, sorry, he wouldn't say. As Hangatir says, he would show that he's trying to learn and not just regurgitate stuff, but take on what, the strategies and points of detail that Hangatir had listed off. See how many men they have, entrances, where the weaknesses may be. Are there patrols? I know you are the best in Gunland at moving quietly and tracking game. This will be different. Are you up to the task? I need you.
I've had a few days to venture out at least somewhat into the woods. I can assure you, here as it is in Gunland, I am the best. I will do this. We will succeed, and the men will see that you are a good captain.
I'm thinking I will be as good a captain as my best crewmates. And I'm glad to have you on the crew.
Well, I can assure you that surviving 2 days, you're already doing much better than both our previous captains.
May we see them in the corpse hall, he says, respectfully, drinking to their
take
memory.
a drink. Take a drink.
Go. Gather 2 men. Leave after sundown. Have a nice hot meal and leave after sundown. We want to see the information you get, Hrafngeir, will determine our approach for the attack. Can we sneak in? Is there more than one entrance? I know you have a mind for this.
We will need a point of interception, perhaps a defined amount of distance between the coast and the town, Sudbrand, where we can meet and discuss. I will eat and I will leave. Thank you. Bows head and makes leave.
I just say from a logistics standpoint, probably the best thing to do is have the scouts go with the skeleton crew and have the crew remain an hour and a half or 2 hours outside of Sudbrand and have the scouts sneak around, have a look around, then come back to the skeleton crew, sail back to us, give us the information, we make a plan, and then we all go together.
Okay, yeah.
Probably makes the most sense. Because we need to know the information before we get there, I think.
Yeah,
Because
for
once
sure.
we're in line of sight of the coastline, then they're going to start preparing defenses. So if we don't have a plan that we can immediately jump into action and start executing, then it's already too late to plan. At that point, you just have to go.
Well,
So just so I have the idea that you guys are going to send foot scouts to Sudbrand to reconnaissance it and have a point back from there where there are ships on the beach or nearby to the beach. That's like communication between the two, and then that ship brings communication back to a ship at Fiesthymer, or is it both ships waiting at the coast closer to where the scouts are probing?
So in my head, it's like one, whatever the smallest ship is, with the minimum amount of people required to sail it, including the scouts. They go and then they stop like a couple of hours outside of Sudbrand. The 3 or 4 scouts sneakily get out of the boat, scout the place, then come back to the boat, and then they all sail back to us in Fiesthymer, give us the information, you know? So they're not like going back and forth. They're taking a ship to get there as quick as possible, because I think it would be much longer by walking, right?
Yeah, it's 2 days by sea.
Yep. So that's agreed by Eric. I know he's already left, but the next day or whatever, he assent to the plan, and the Nameless can go with a skeleton crew, the rest staying to look after the wounded in Fiesthymer, to bear the scouts south of Sudbrand to reconnaissance, and then bring word back to a combined force swiftly to respond. In the meantime, Animal and Thrall will be sacrificed to Ran by the Godsworn, and everyone else would be in preparation. Okay, that's have I got a good idea of the plan?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we'll move to the next scene, and that will be the next morning, close to dawn. Like the slit of light is in the horizon, though the world is still grey. Ira, and a thrall and a warrior will come bearing an unbound woman to the barn where you and some warriors have been barracked, and they still snore. Or a couple might hover over some coals and breakfast, but you've been up in preparation and can hear the footsteps of these bringers when they come. They will nod reverentially towards you and show much more respect than you imagine they do when you're on the ship and their superstitions are kicked in. But they'll even give some semblance of a bow when they hand over the rope bearing a female goat. And push or gesture, I should say, the female thrall towards you. Lady, one of them will utter. These are bid us give to you by our master Eric.
She'll take the rope, firmly, kind of wrap it around to ensure that she has a strong grip on it, and then she'll just give a nod. Yes, thank you. I'll see to the rest. And just kind of give a nod to the man.
Yeah, they'll nod as well, and take their leave swiftly back to Eric once the deed is done. You know where Hengetir lairs here in Fiesthymer and can find him well enough. Goat and thrall in hands.
Yeah, she'll approach up to find Hengetir with the 2 sacrifices to be ready. And kind of looking around to see that there's nobody else. She'll be much more sheepish than perhaps her public persona typically is. I've heard and seen enough of what to do with this, and she doesn't want to say that she doesn't know exactly what to do now that she has these, but so she'll just kind of trail it off, hoping that it'll be expectant in her words.
If they're going to Ran, she'll want them drowned. In the surf, we wade in, we hold their heads under, and we offer them to Ran, I think. I don't often do this kind of thing. I tend to give my sacrifices to Odin in the spear den. But you only go to Ran if you drown, and so he shrugs, thinking that must be correct.
Then drowned it is. And she'll kind of look over in the direction of the beach. And I guess just start heading towards the beach with the goat and the woman in tow.
Yeah,
the goat will begin bleeding when it comes into the surf. But yeah, it can't resist you, of course.
I imagine that the woman does as well, but he's like unconcerned because he's a psychopath, and like doesn't understand fear, and so he just like grabs the two of them and like is holding them, and like looking to Ira to make the appropriate words or it's like whatever needs to be said to Ran, and then he'll do the holding two people or a goat and a person under the water while they drown.
Yeah, as she sees it, I guess she'll just kind of like look around again, kind of not like totally positive of like what to do or what to say. And she'll just like start talking anyways. To Ran, we offer you these gifts that you might see our path smoothly across the waters, thus our travels, thus they might not see us. That the waters will be clean, the winds will be smooth, and that in these things that we give to you, nothing else will you take from us on our journey. And then just like after she's finished, she'll just like look over to Hangatir, like shrug, like raise an eyebrow of like that. She won't say that, but she'll just kind of like give that look and then just like hope. Kind of borrowing his callousness from the two like drowning living creatures that he's like holding under the water. Like feel uncomfortable watching the woman drowned after she says everything, but will like keep that from her face and from her words.
Yeah, she's chillingly silent, kind of like just shell shocked. The gravity of like first having her town sacked, family killed, but now ritually sacrificed, kind of like numb and idle as she goes into the grey. And Ran like budges into you as she like takes them once they're seized by a final paroxysm, and you can let them go, hanged lords, down to feast with Ran.
Yeah, when it's done, he'll just sort of like stand up and crack his neck and then look back towards the shore. That should do fine.
Yeah, Irola will just nod. She like can't help but look down at like the now like still corpse of the woman. Like thinking back that would probably be her if she didn't escape from the same sort of thing that she's doing to other people now. She like can't help but notice. But she'll turn away, try not to show that to Hangatir especially.
Yeah, he'll linger in the water for a bit, as like the waves come and like buffet against him, and I guess pull the goat and the woman out further and further. And he like feels a little bit something. He feels something, and then he quickly like stuffs some of that red root into his mouth, and it like numbs him. And like the shakes subside a little bit, and he walks back onto the beach.
Gear. You're at a feast. You're the only one there, even though you'd arrived panic considering how late you are. So you have this weird vertigo feeling of arriving to an anticlimax early when no one's here. You kind of look around in amazement, and that to your left, an empty seat. To your right, the same bench that you share with nothing. Back to the left again, and there sits Tora. And her lips are blue and her jaws chittering so much that whenever she tries to take some of the fine food on the table before you into her mouth, she like spits and spills half of it down her hands and onto the table with like blue fingernailed hands, probes at the food to put it back into her chittering mouth. And you look at this queer sight when you hear footsteps over the stones behind you to turn. And you see Agnar, the son of Ulf. He's got a platter of food. You can smell it at the side of him. It's laid down before you, this roasted meat. And he gives us like a slight bow, and the wounds in his gut squelch and ooze ichor down his front before he goes and sits next to you. You look up from the food across the table from you. There's two warriors. One has an arrow through his throat, so his mouth is open and just filled with fletching. And when he tries to put food into it, the arrow butt obstructs it. And although the fire spits and crackles and is quite bright when you try to look at it, you don't feel any warmth from it.
Is this what I can expect when I take the life of a man? Is for them to follow me? I
Agnar
suppose.
turns to you chewing and just speaks blood down his chin for adopting silence again.
Why must men war? And I'll kind of succumb into myself a little bit, searching for warmth in what I imagine is my cold arms, as wounds that are beginning to heal ache, and the fire gives no heat. Can I get up to leave?
Yeah, you find yourself sitting as you might have too big at a kid's table with the seat too high and the table bench too small, kind of compressing at your thighs. You kind of ungracefully extract yourself from the table, and as this unreality wields away, you churn back into reality, into the morning, into the salt spray, and to Skalm over you, saying, "Wake, wake, Hrafngeir. Land is sighted, and the captain's called for you."
Very right. Very well. I'll stir, wrap whatever clothes I have about me tight, trying to shield myself from the spray, and quickly make my way over to the captain.
Yeah, Gunnaldr, you can see where it is gathering up about you near the prow. Every so often, as oars cut into the spay and drive the Nameless closer to the sandy beach that you've sighted, where you're going to drop off these scouts and send them off north to Sudbrand. And Hrafngeir joins you. It's the grey early hours of the day, and maybe no more than an hour or so after dawn.
Even in the pale light, with hungry eyes, Gunnaldr surveys the shoreline as they're approaching. Just imagination running wild at what lays in this section of the land. Just excited about this first the first prize with him as captain, and even the excitement of this first little voyage, even though it's barely that at all. But he's just soaking in, and it's kind of just really hitting him that he is the captain of this ship now, and he's on here with his skeleton crew and his friend Hrafngeir. And as Hrafngeir comes up from the corner of the little area that he was sleeping in, getting sprayed with salt water, Gunnaldr's eyes are his face shows that kind of excitement, but he's also trying to grow a bit more serious and take this position that he's now got seriously. And it's all hitting him at once, the words from Hangatir and Ira, when they were speaking and giving him guidance. It's all going through his mind, how I have to try and sort of find my path and make my mark and know what kind of captain I'm going to be. And so he tries his hand at giving an order to his friend Hrafngeir. When we land, you take the other two. Scout ahead and be back. It's been the first light for near an hour. I don't know how long it'll take to get to Sudbrand. We will wait until sundown. If you're not back by sundown, I'll assume that you were caught. Do you understand?
Yes.
Move quick and get as much information as you can. The two going with you, they've seen more war. They can help you know what to look for. And then he places a hand on Hafngeir's shoulder. Don't get yourself killed.
I don't intend to. And I'm gonna have we come closer to the shore, so I'm not are we
Yeah, here in biting distance of the shore, like soon the Nameless will grind up onto the beach and let you overboard.
I'm gonna scoop whatever kind of rucksack that I have with me and my unstrung bow and prepare to leave with the two men. Do these two men have names?
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Are they of the crewmen or are they of the named men?
Yeah, I'd say let's pick two of the named men. Bold Ulfmunder and Tall Arnstein.
They're waiting, similarly lightly armed with rucksacks slung over, and they jump down into the cold, knee-high water and make their way up onto the shore with you, Hrafngeir. And soon you push beyond the beach into the hinterland and lose sight of the Nameless and the dawn. And the woods grow dark, even though the trees are naked about you. Reaching but still and a darker grey than the grey of the wintry East Asblot, the morning that disguises much of your passage inland away from the coast, north from this eastern jut of shoreline. Arnstein and the other men are quiet, silent as for speech. Their movement is similar to your own, a light passing, men chosen well for this. And I guess having rode with them over the last weeks and fought several times, they would have a respect and rapport to you that even though they don't say it or verbalize it, they carry it in their bearing with you. And a couple of hours now, you've been pushing up when you've come to an abandoned farmhouse, not abandoned a long time ago, like it's still in good repair, but it's been stripped. Everything's been taken, and there's footprints and animal prints baked hard into the cold ground around it. There's hide nor hair of anything living here. You don't think these tracks are any older than a week or so. Perhaps the forces and folk around here have been retreating back to Sudbrand for fear of these sea wolves who've come prowling. Arnstein looks up from one of the mounds and walks over towards you into the shadow of the lee of the abandoned homestead. If I were that Carl beyond, there be scouts upon that ridge or at those trees. We should beware that our passing will be marked before we might see anyone. But we are close to Sudbrand. Farmsteads like this, they'll supply the Jarl and would be not too far from his protection. He looks up at the sky, trying to look through the grey glare to judge the mid-morning time, and then looks back to you, hocks something stubborn from his nose and spits it out into the grey.
Yes, it's safe to assume that they expect us to come by land. Well, we must get closer. Perhaps if we make our way further through the trees, we can catch any kind of scouting party there unawares. At the very least, I would like to see what we can expect in men at least. They can't be far.
He nods and points. We could skirt around, follow those copses to that stand there, and he points further up to the north and then into the trees there. We'll move quiet, and if this foul weather holds, all the better for us. You're the youngest. You should take the point.
Very well. Staying low to the ground and moving as quietly as possible, I'll head in the direction of the copse of trees to see if we can skirt this likely scouting area.
Yeah, they'll fan out a bow shot each from you, but equidistant from each other, and they'll adopt a silent posture as yourself. Can I get a stealth roll from you, please?
Absolutely. Ooh, 19 on the die for a total of 25.
Before the next the next hour has passed, the morning groans further. You've made your way now from tree to tree, and have heard over the last minutes the babble of conversation. What sounds like two youths, and as you stop at one dead, sunken trunk to kind of lurk behind, you hear like the clomp of bitten harness and like shag of a horse or Garen, not too dissimilar from the one Scooty rode into Fiesthymer, and appearing from your next hiding spot, or like a broken tree, you leer over the top of them. So these two youths on the cusp of manhood, they have a low fire in a pit that's just kind of coals that one hunches over, and the other kind of kicks about holding a spear over his shoulder, moving between from where a Garen is tethered and then to some other tree to kind of look and peer with like more of the excitement and expectancy of youth than with like the trained gaze of a proper sentinel. But their purposelessness gives light or gives truth to their purpose. They're not doing anything but looking about. They have a horse, which is much too much for two peasant boys to own. There's something not right about this to you. The other men, you probably wouldn't hear them or see them, but you would know them to be a bow shot back behind you, and then the other Arnstein bringing up the rear bow shot behind that. What do you do?
I'm definitely going to try and see if there's anybody. It's probably challenging, but anybody that would be watching them as well as us, like they are. And to me, this seems like they're the distraction to get us to make a move against. To adolescents, this is much too easy. So I'm going to be looking for kind of a vantage point over this area that would have this as the kind of the focal point.
So like somewhere higher that you can stealth to get a better survey of them and potentially other things about, like heights?
Yeah, if there is one. Something
Yeah.
that would kind of put you in a position to kind of lure over this area.
Yeah, with another stealth check, you can move around, like flanking around behind them to where like the ground rises up higher and like the top of the ridge sits.
I think the important thing is, like, as well as trying to stay stealthy, I'm trying to find if there's anybody else here.
Yep.
16 on the die for a total of 22.
Yeah, so your silence itself, and even though it's light out, you blend from darkness to darkness to the small shadows cast by the trees, and can make your way around these youths and their horse and up to like the highest point of the ridge. From this vantage point, you can indeed roll a perception check to scout for other enemies.
Not as good. 8 with a bonus of for a total of 12.
So even from up here, you can't see any further enemies or like people that you might consider hostile. But you can see the artifice of man down the other side of the rise from you, and like small like hovels and homesteads beyond that give way in the distance to the square specks of a township on the edge of a bay. And even though you don't see other foes, you imagine there must be some within riding distance
Right.
from where those boys had set up their like little fire pit and camp.
Would I have been able to signal to my men kind of positioned on the ground?
I think so, with various like bird calls or like whistles or insect noises and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I'm going to just give the signal to avoid these kids and see if we can move past them.
They both succeed, and we'll give calls like in agreement to that. and maybe 20 minutes or so afterwards down the ridge, you'd be able to reconvene with them, Arnstein and the other.
I don't trust they were alone. I think we should move quickly and get the hell back to the captain.
Agreed. All the better that their scouts left intact to report that they've sighted nothing. He'll give you a wink.
That's my thought. Is there like more farmland in between here and that community?
Yeah,
like
the woodlands
flat
begin
ground?
to slowly give way to more and more humanization of the terrain. But there's still ample cover from different like farmsteads and outposts that have been abandoned, as like the populace around here have obviously retracted back to Sudbrand. And with the foul where they're holding, you could like push in to get a closer look at the town, like not a close scrutiny, but at least kind of like a detailed look.
Can I get an idea from just the amount of farmhouse or farming structures that I'm seeing, like roughly how many people occupy this kind of general area? Just to like, I don't expect to know exact numbers, but if I'm seeing 10 farmhouses, I can assume that there's such and such amount of people.
Yeah, there's enough for dozens of families. You'd imagine probably 200 folk or more call this place home. And obviously, like a percentage of those would be fighting stock.
Right.
And then on top of that, thralls and refugees who may number in the scores, I guess, that you might estimate, from Fiesthymer who have come to swell their numbers. So given like the context of what you know and what buildings you've seen around here and like how big the settlement looks to the eye from where you stand, you estimate 250 plus folk, roughly. Yeah.
Okay. Using these abandoned abandoned structures, I would like to try to get closer, see if I can see any of the defenses of the perimeter.
Can I get a perception check, please?
Absolutely. 11 for a total of 15 perception.
So you could see that not only is there a palisade inside the township around what must be the jetties or ports of Sudbrand, but there's like a ditch dug in the front of that wooden palisade. You can't see in it from where you are. I think you wouldn't risk getting to peer over the top of it by fear of being seen. But you could estimate there's either water or muck or stakes or any number of possible nastiness inside the ditch that girts the palisade around the central hub of the town. So the buildings that kind of make up the township of Sudbrand itself, majority of them are unwalled. It's the center that is, and that walling ends at the beach, and you can see jetties and piers jut out from there. And there's small vessels and craft you would see that wouldn't concern you. What would concern you is the three Nars, three longships that are of a smaller design than your own, of crews between 15 to 20 men. As far as what like forces you might see, I think that would actually be minimal, even though there's certainly warriors and guards you can see on the walls or moving about inside the town, like armed folk. But the majority of the host is inside the palisade, which I can't see how you'd be able to spy from the outside. You'd have to observe for some time to get an estimate of that, which would cut out your rendezvous time of sundown.
Can I just ask Nico, in terms of like the palisade, is it basically like the beach and the jetties and stuff, and then a wall so that people who sail can't get in, or is it like around most of the village and not the beach?
Imagine like a village on the side of a harbour, and where the beachfront meets like the township and jetties and ports, say halfway through in towards the centre of the town, there's a ring around like the central beach part and centre of the town. But it's not like a wall that's like a seawall or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so you could access the town, you can access the beach either side of it, but the walled section, is fortified, and it's got a rampart, like a walking rampart behind it at the gatehouse points and beach points, but not from point to point, like along the walls, like you might expect of like a larger castle. So not defensible by men at certain points, though still tall and an imposing defense nonetheless. And you would see sentries numbering in the dozens, I imagine, since it's daytime. Am I right in thinking you'd be dressed in like leathers and hide and not dressed as if like a warrior, like ready for battle? That's what I'm assuming.
Is there anywhere where I see the kind of more wooded lands come close, or has this got like a solid like parameter of farming communities?
Yeah, it does. It has
sides?
like a concerted one. Like
Okay.
It looks like the land around it has been harvested of trees which have been used to create the township as like a source of resource, but also as a point of survey, like to clear the land for survey. It'd be not too dissimilar from others that you would have come across before, or maybe even Jarl Gunnar's. And there would be growth there and pens and farmlands and things like that, but it wouldn't be wooded by any stretch.
Is there buildings that come close to this palisade, or is there a gap between any structures and the wall?
There is a gap between the structures and the wall from the outside in, which would have given you alerted you to the existence of a ditch.
Ah, yeah, you're right. All right.
Yeah, because if there wasn't a ditch, they probably
Yeah,
would,
they
as
would probably.
they tend to build either side of the wall. But yeah,
I'll kind of, I imagine some of this information was actually gathered by my men as well as myself, and we've kind of all conferred, giving the group the lowdown on everything we've gathered. I don't know how much more we can gather without being inside the wall. I don't imagine that'll be a reality we can see. We go back, avoid any sentry, make for the boat.
they look between each other and then you nod in assent. It's clear that the other man had wanted to, thought it prudent to slaughter the scouts and rob them of the horse and anything else. But it's clear that Arnstein agrees with you, and in like the 2 against 1 of a trinity, he nods in agreement and keeps quiet on the matter, and will go back with you guys silently, circumventing the scouts and whatnot, and trying to take the road less traveled to avoid any notice as you head back south towards the Nameless.
Do you want a stealth check to?
No, I think having done 2 stealth checks to get around these guys, and being
okay.
like a guy who knows his terrain and stuff, and a hunter, that if you want to, you'd be able to just go far enough away from them that you don't have to
Right. Okay.
stealth away from them.
Yeah, then I think we are just going to move as quickly as possible back to the ship.
Cool. In the interest of speed, I'll just say that you find your way back to the ship, and some time has passed Gunnaldr, but it's uneventful, I guess, and so has been lagging on before the first scout ashore calls up and waves his hand to you, signaling at the imminent return of the men you'd sent out under Hrafngeir. And when he emerges and the others intact, and I guess maybe with a smile or some hint that there is news and all is well, you'd be lightened a little from the burden of worry as he grows close down to the beach where the Nameless is borne up on a swollen wooden belly.
Definitely. Big smile cracks his face as he sees his men, the scouts, emerging, especially when he sees Hrafngeir. I think he'd get off the ship and march up on the shore to greet them, get the news.
I didn't expect you to get out of the ship. Now we both have to get wet. I have good news, at least somewhat. It seems that we face many more workers than fighters, though they do have them. They had adolescents as scouts and sentries. I have reason to believe most of their armed men are held up within the palisades. The city surrounds the wooden structure. I believe there's a ditch in between any buildings and the wall. but most of the city lies outside of the wall.
All the better for us. And what of these woods? How close do they get? Can we use them for cover?
No. Much of the communities were built from wood cut down, circling the fortification. At best, we're working with some small copses of trees, large stones. Nothing to move a large squadron of soldiers.
That shouldn't pose too much of a problem. Those ditches would have been a surprise if we did not know about them.
Let
Good work.
us not count ourselves completely lucky. And I'll smile at you at the reference. They have 3 Nar ships, crews 15, 20 men.
He licks his lips, I think, at the thought of their value. Do you think they have men enough to even crew them? Will they be a threat?
Well, the way I see it, if the crews are on the ships, they've certainly left themselves out in the open outside of the wall. And if they are within the wall, they've left the ships. Either way, I think there is an advantage to be gained by taking them by sea. Though I admit my knowledge of warfare is lacking, and I would certainly enjoy Rafngeir or Iris' counsel.
Indeed. And we'll see what Jarl Erik has to say as well, since he will be landing with us.
Well,
come. Let's
at
settle
best,
back and
go ahead.
speak.
Well, I hope their ritual to Ran went well. We'll need it. But if this goes well, the men will have no choice but to look to you as captain.
None of the gods would refuse Hangatir. Not even Ran. The sacrifice will have gone well.
Ran sits in her watery halls at a splendid table made of coral and crafted by deep things for her delicacy and enjoyment, and while she eats drowned goat, while a scarified and face-gouged thrall sits on, not to draw the eyes of men by her beauty. Jealous Ran gluts herself, and speedily the Nameless zooms back south towards Fiesthymer, bearing you all and news for counsel with Ira and Hangatir. I think that's a good place to take a coffee smoko halftime break, and then we'll get stuck back into it. Sweet. 5 minutes. So without issue, several hours after sunset, the Nameless arrives back into harbour at seized Fiesthymer. And if either of you were at rest, Ira or Hangatir, you'd be awakened with those others who are like chiefmost company of Captain Gunnaldr, and informed of his return, such that the hearth can be lit in Kolskegg's seized hall in Fiesthymer, and you can all be waiting about as Hrafngeir, Captain Gunnaldr, and the skeleton crew of the Nameless return. Eric's been roused, though he doesn't appear to have been sleeping, and he's eager and expectant.
I think Hangatir would like, as we sit at one of the tables, have taken some charcoal from one of the fires and would hand it to Hrafngeir to draw like a map on the table as best he can of like a rough shape of the place and where things are, so that we have like an idea what it looks like before we get there.
Yeah, Hrafngeir would do his best to. I'm sure the northern side of the town is a little bit more vague in artistic description here than the southern and eastern half that I was able to see. But I would definitely, point out the ditches, the approximations of where I believe houses to be, and where ideal spots to maybe light fires could be. And I would definitely give the floor to Captain Gunnaldr to levy a battle plan.
Yeah, Gunnaldr would make sure, obviously, Jarl Eric's there as well, and even maybe Gunblindi and Skull, two wise older men. Hrafngeir, these ditches, is it around the whole village? Just between the buildings?
If it's any fortification worth salt, they've got it around the whole thing. It didn't seem as if any buildings were built up close to the wall like they would have been had it been anywhere else.
We should expect it to be around the whole thing, and maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised. It's a shame that the woods, as he gestures on the map, and directing a lot of this speech to Jarl Eric, since he is the captain of the other crew, but more or less equally to his key crew members that are here as well. It's a shame we cannot approach by land and sea, especially with these woods cleared away. But I think, here's what I'm thinking. They have these 3 ships, and if, he says with a bit of a grin to Hrafngeir, if they have a whiff of us coming, they may have men on the ships, in which case we can land and strike the town. If they don't expect us, maybe the ships will be empty. At least we know they're inside, but the ships are easily taken then. I think we land a party, he gestures on the map, a little bit down to one area. We land Hrafngeir with a crew to sneak in, silently take out the sentries, and then set fires in the unwalled parts of the city. While we, in the ships at sea, wait to see the fire and seize the opportunity. We row in and land. Hangatir will lead our finest men to rush in the confusion. They'll be scrambling to put out the fires and grab their weapons. They won't know what hit them. What do you think? He says, like, even that moment's pause, that confidence that he tried to finish it with just started melting away very quickly. Like, in his head, he's like, I've never done anything like this myself before, really.
Fear is one of our most useful tools in fighting these people. They have a lot of people there. Not many of them are warriors, and they're going to panic, and that's good. We want their focus split. We want them looking back at the fire so that when we strike, it's a surprise.
While we may outmatch them for warrior and for skill, I'd bet that we will. If they levy any of their townspeople, we will be outnumbered. And while one townsperson is hardly a challenge for any warrior worth their salt, if the too many of them line up around us, they'll swarm us and we will die all the same. Perhaps Hangachir won't, but the rest of us will. With their defenses and their buildings choked up, we should use that to our advantage. Try to find areas where we can bottle them in, where only the people that we want to fight can get to us, and the rest must squabble behind them. If we fight an open battle against them, 60 warriors and 100 peasants, we will die.
These people are defending their home, he says, nodding and looking each of you in the eye. I know something about how desperately you fight when you're doing that. Distraction will be key, and fear. It will be ripe, but it will be on us to use it as a weapon.
It pains me to say this, but perhaps we should clue Gunmagn on our plan. I don't like the man, but some of the men do. And if he feels he's at least put input in, I'll be more inclined to go along.
I would worry it be seen as weakness in my captaincy.
I mean not to question.
No, it is a fair suggestion. I just do not think...
I would kind of look around. I'm sure we have kind of gotten either somewhat isolated location or some sort of privacy, but I haven't seen him much in the last few days. And given my last interaction with him, perhaps it'd be best to keep him where we can see him.
What Gunnaldr, what you say is true, though. If you look for input at every turn from the man that you beat out to rule this crew, many men will start to doubt whether your vote should have been theirs in the first place. You must speak with authority, command Gunmagn and his men. Not look for their help, but for their service. Or else why you and not him in the first place?
You don't have to ask his permission. He does as you say. You're the captain.
Perhaps then, he says, scratching his red beard, a test of his loyalty may be in order.
Send him with me.
He has good fighting men. He should lead them. Hangatir, you'll take Gunmagn and his Huskarls and the mercenary crew. You will be the spearhead. We will form up a shield wall behind you. In the chaos of the fire, and with no sentries, thanks to Hrafngeir, maybe we can avoid losing too many men in the taking. Jarl Erik, would you send any of your men in the spearhead?
He looks at the charcoal map and like the paired pieces of wood as markers that you're moving about by the firelight. A decisive blow, yes, I would lend all my strength to that. But with the haze of smoke and fire, and at night while the Skeletal roam, much can go ill. And you'd expected something like this from him, but can't
Yeah.
wholly discount it. Even though there's worry and naggery about it, there is the kernel of shrewdness or like military mind of it that's undeniable. What he says is true to a degree, but his worry may not be for as much as he would make of it.
Here, hang it to a little point where there's like two buildings that are like 20 paces apart or whatever. We'll rush to here. We'll kill everyone who holds a weapon until we get there. That's where we'll make a shield wall. The rest of you will take your time and move slowly and gather there. And we'll go killing until you get there.
The losses there might be heavy, though it would mean little Harry at the larger force, and he'll scratch his stubbled chin at that. You can tell he likes that element of it because it's percentile based. Like the losses could be minimum of that kind of maneuver if it pulls off, though. If there's not stuff in place which slows everyone down and gets you guys killed, and then the number parity's gone. But he seems to like that well enough. And what of their ships? What of the harbour? They may flee. You said there were 3 ships. He looks to you, Hrafngeir, and then nods to himself, recalling the report. They may flee by that, chief most of Oleg, and escape our grasp and looting, he says plainly.
If they try to flee, then we take the town. But we'll be landing by the ships. And we can burn them, we can put men on them, or we can cut the ropes and set them afloat and get them later.
We must be quick. Cut them loose and fetch them after victory.
Navigating the bay at night, it could prove treacherous for our rope bears.
How far up? And he grabs the charcoal and sort of tries sketching in what he knows of the coastline from where they landed.
If you'll see on the map that I sent you guys through the Facebook chat, that like Barons, that Hrafngeir would have been able to mark down for you guys. There's those buildings nearby, kind of like a natural harbour that's south of Sudbrand, which is like a stretch of beach that would be kind and landable that Hrafngeir could vouch for. Though, as for like getting the ships inside the walled part of the bay where the Nars are moored, is an unknown quantity to your respective captains. By night time, of course. By day, easy, but by night, hazardous.
If they flee on the ships, victory of the town is ours, no?
Yes, just not all of the prize, he says, assenting that the plan will win the town, which is the primary objective, but the secondary objective being silver wealth. A good portion of that might go with those 3 Nars in abandonment, if it even happens.
So why don't we?
Yeah, I don't want them to get away.
Then why not sail here? He points, and block their ships in, besiege them by sea, where we are swift and well supplied.
Are the ships beached?
You cannot catch us.
Or are they moored? Are they beached?
Yeah, both, I guess. Hauled up on the beach, okay, but tethered still to the land so that they're close enough to be put to sea.
Yeah, so they're not like floating in the water.
Out in the bay? No.
Okay. Because then we can't just cut the rope and send them floating away and we can just get them later.
You'd have to cut the rope and then push them out to sea, while under fire, presumably.
If the priority for them ends up being getting on their ships and running, then we can have the main shield wall form in front of the ships. Because that's what we're doing anyway. We're going to have all our guys land and form up in front of our ships, I guess. But if we land in front of their ships and like make the shield wall there and they try to run to their ships, then we kill them as they try and get away. And I go on my suicide mission that I will survive, probably.
And we burn buildings as we go, he says.
Yeah.
To eliminate our battlefield and to deny the enemy defense.
Yeah.
He likes that idea better because it's a consolidated force, like holding their escape route. and puts it on your terms, like might incentivize them to attack you guys and forego their defenses. He'll nod again, thinking the things over. What say you, Gunnaldr? Half the risk is yours to bear.
I think this wise. The more, as Rafngir says, not many of them are warriors. They see multiple fires. And they know reapers are in the area. Some of them may flee immediately. So protecting, having our shield wall guard the ships, blocking off their escape. It's the way to go.
If they flee, they'll flee here, he points, or here, to like the gate which leads out into the wilds, or to the central long hall in the center of the walled part. Either are preferable for us. In the light of day, the enemy will rue how small our force is compared to their populace, and how it was cowed so. But it relies on speed. And the gods
but in
being
the cloak
kind.
of darkness, they will not know. We will be as 1,000 men to their eyes.
And they would have been thinking long and fearing of us since Jarl Gunnar commanded at this invasion, fearing this day or night to come. Let it be so, he says. Let the Spaebrand and the Nameless haul alongside each other, and both their swordsmen stand shoulder to shoulder, deny the enemy their ships, and push on to the center of the town to seize the whole prize.
Aye, for Gunland and Jarl Gunnar, he says as he clasps Jarl Eric's arm in agreement.
He'll return it and give kind of a rare show of teeth, and go to call his men, and intense drum music plays, and a montage of gloomy preparation begins, and the two ships bite into the sea, both sporting their dragon-headed prows, and seek north like prowling wolves towards those waiting in Sudbrand. The intent is to sail up around the peninsula by night, right, and not so be seen by them.
Yeah.
So I guess it's under that cover of darkness and the slosh of runs, waters, find ourselves the next day or the onset of evening. And you can see the lights of the town, as it's still close enough from sundown that there would be still some lighting about the place, for it is enveloped by darkness. And so I can use that and the fair moonlight to kind of skirt the coast, begin your swift prowl up into those targeted lands. Hangatir, how would you be arrayed this evening for what may possibly be your last fight in this middle realm?
Yeah, after we drop Rafngir off with the scouts, he'd begin his preparations of like, I guess like while everyone else is rowing, he's decided that he doesn't need to. This is more important, and so he would like have taken, and with Gunblindy together, would have gathered like the necessary like herbs and roots to make woad, and like have gathered like all this stuff together, and he's like crushing it in a mortar and pestle with like spit and all the rest until he has like this thick sort of gooey blue-black substance, and he's going to basically cover himself in it, like all over from head to toe, and then Gunblindy will like cut with like a like what the Romans used to scrape the oil off themselves, like scrape rune shapes into the skin so they show underneath the woad, and then he'll like begin drinking this concoction. He'll spit out the red root and start drinking of the sacred mushroom tea, and he'll just start singing and chanting, and he's working himself up into this maybe final berserker gang, no more or less concerned with the outcome today than he's ever been. There's an hour at which he's supposed to die, and it's out of his hands, and so it doesn't like freak him out, the idea that he might die here. He's expecting that, and he goes into every combat with a certainty that he could and should die, and so probably like despite like the excitement and like the like jumping up and down and like dancing and like singing, he's probably calmer than most of the other men in some ways. And yeah, just determined. And I guess like once he's like his eyes are like wide, he'll like go to the others who are with him and like take some of the woad and like draw a rune upon their forehead so that they know that they're all together in this. And then just wait and look out into the night for the sign of fire.
Rad. And is the intent to drop Hrafngeir ashore south of Sudbrand and have him and scouts take out sentinels south of the place and not be part of the main assault where you guys are? Cool. So yeah, as the Nameless gets close to the beach and you and others drop into the water and swim to the short distance towards shore, how are you, Gert? How do you appear, Hrafngeir, this evening for war?
For the most part, we are as scarcely kind of adorned as we usually are for the sake of swiftness. I think that taking the path we followed earlier, I would look to find the sentry, at least location. I'm sure they've swapped out a dozen times since then, or however long it's been. Looking to just start killing the sentries they have posted in between us and the ships, so that there's no one to kind of get word or see us coming up the coast at all, and begin preparation of at least places where we can set the thatch and wood of the homes on fire.
Mm-hmm. Imagine you guys have like oiled lambskins bundles, like waterproofed, that you have this like kindling and all the like the necessary items in that, kind of almost like Viking commandos being like dropped inside of shore.
We're the Viking Navy SEALs.
Amphibious assault, yeah, that's cool. You guys can make your way ashore and wet and salty off into the night to do your murder, your sanctified murder. Ira, are you being ruined as part of the Kool-Aid team, or are you staying with Captain Gunnaldr in the shield wall near the ships?
That's a good question. As far as tactically, I mean, I do have a lot that I can do in a fight, so it may be worth having me join the squad. But I don't know if the commander has other plans.
I think out of character mechanically, if you're with that party, then they can get your buffs, and then I'll stay with the other party and they can get mine. But in character as well, I think Gunnaldr would maybe pick up that that Ira is keen to, go into this battle again with Hangatyr, sort of, student of Odin as she is. So he would give her leave to do that.
Yeah, I imagine it's one of those like unspoken things where like Hangatyr's just like going down the line, painting different people with this stuff, and then she'll just like stand next to like whoever the last person in line is, like spear and shield in hand or whatever, and just like wordlessly is just like, I'm here.
The last to be marked. The 13th man. Yeah, and how are you arrayed for battle this evening?
Yes, she's got the same spear, this like well-crafted spear that she's managed to get from somewhere somehow, and dressed in the armor. After she's like painted by all the runic markings that Hangatyr will put on her, she'll begin to mark some of her own things. Most of all, the shield that she'll carry. She'll like mark the helm of Awe on its face, the same symbol that she's been using to fuel a lot of their prior battles. The symbol that she's learned as a student of Odin to protect her allies in the coming battle, and knows that as long as she carries it, that they'll be protected by its grasp.
At the back of the ship, at the rudder, Orn Doorbacks, toothy smile as wide and white as the moon, and his eyes are wide and fierce as he steers the Nameless in, while the crew, with padded oars, cut their silent path along the waters towards the prize. And you, swinging from the dragon prow, the night air in your hair, Gunnaldr, how are you arrayed for battle this evening?
In full glorious war gear as he stands on the dragon prow of the ship. Fine red cloak with a gold brooch on it, and his fine red boots, and his metal rimmed round red shield. And he, at this point, I imagine as well, he's sort of leaning, almost casually, just taking the wind through his hair and his beard as he holds his spectacled coif helm under his arm.
The lights of the prize go brighter, and you cut about veering port into the middle of it, using the central lights of the place to guide yourself. And this silent but tense anticipation begins to drop over everyone, and some strength hidden from feeling is now found, and it spurns the oarsmen on. Even those who had eyed you ruefully, Hangatir, that you'd forgone to help them in that endeavor. But this oomph comes through people as violence and the prize and glory approaches. And soon upon the shore, there's shouts and screams as ships by moonlight and distant firelights become known to what tense sentries have been set here in the cold. But already then it's too late, for it's only moments thereafter as these cries and screams are echoing that two great groans go up on the beach like stone ropes bending or tensing. There's up onto the shore, and men in chain with shields slung on their backs and helms obscuring their tattooed faces plunge out into the cold grey and begin storming up behind the Achillean-like Hangatir towards those aforementioned or aforechosen buildings. A squad of Rundemark men crying blood-curdling cries to Odin spill in like a spear to the gut of Sudbrand, while around Gunnaldr and Karl Erik, men form up, interlocking their shields into a long line, 3 men deep, in front of where your 2 rope bears have borne up alongside the 3 Nars. And as men run back and forth, calling in abandon for orders and commands and alarms, your plan begins to fall into motion, such that you're already trudging up the beach in this shield wall, some ways from where the first fires have been lit, before any semblance of defense is arrayed before you. You can't see, but I guess would hear an older man's voice bellowing orders as steel and the sound of wood hints at the approach of another kind of prism block of men set down to repel you, and they begin to form up and cry battle songs to each other as they ready for the clash against your own lines, Gunnaldr. Meanwhile, in the night, there are even men who are rushing past or alongside you, Hangatir and Ira and the rest, mistaking you as their own warriors. So far in to the center of the town, are you they're rushing about, just seeing armed warriors and thinking, "Yep, that's good. They'll be forming up on our flank." You've already passed a couple of buildings and hurled a few flaming brands when this blonde-haired, nasal-helmed captain recognizes that he doesn't know you, realizes he doesn't know you, calls men about him, and they begin to form up a line to advance upon you. At a call, as they've been told, the men and Ira about you form up in between those 2 buildings, so you don't really have a flank, only to your rear, and can present your shields to them. And rather than crash into it foolhardy, this battle-trained person forms up his own line, readying and seeming like he's going to attempt your own in a frontal assault. Following the goat trails through the evening woods and scree Hrafngeir, you find the camp by the low fire pit in the same place, though crewed by different occupants now. There's an older man and a youth, and probably a couple of years young, not a couple, probably half a decade younger than yourself, nearly a man. And they talk low, not fools to give themselves away by night, but to a trained ear like yourself, you can locate them like something out of place plus you have the knowledge of being here before. And with the others fanned out at a distance to your liking, you kind of approach this ridge, which leads down into the lee and into the southern approach to Sudbrand, and can spy the same shaggy Garand horse tethered to the naked elm tree that kind of stands sentinel over these crouching sentinels in the air of the wolf at your approach. And given all that, if everyone could roll initiative, and I will split my brain into 3 parts, and we will have this encounter.
So if it's okay with you, Nico, moving into initiative, I'll go ahead and use, so the thing that I narratively described, but like will mechanically activate of my conduit to use the Helm of Awe. It's basically, I take a minute to inscribe that symbol, and then, so me and Hengatir, assuming that it's okay, and I guess 2 other, if we have any big named people who are part of our crew next to us, we'll get +1 AC and +5 temporary hit points.
Rad. What a power. You'd certainly have time to be able to complete all the stuff for that. And yeah, Orn Dorback, I imagine, would be close to where the glory is, so you can benefit from that. And like another warrior of your choosing that you can name in the battle alongside yourself, and if it becomes appropriate. And I'll just put this ghastly initiative order in there for you, Lloyd. If you will honour me, I'll thank you kindly.
All allies within sight and earshot of Gunnaldr reduce all incoming damage by 5. But
Oh, that's awesome for a tight
that's
shield.
none of the party. There's just NPCs that are with me, I think. So, but that should still help. Yeah, it's jumped
For
from
sure.
2 to 5 with the level up. It's amazing.
And I actually misspoke a tiny bit. It's 6 temporary hit points now, not 5. I forgot we leveled up. Big difference. That 1 HP is going to save someone.
Hrafngeir, you can't see or hear them, but you know that the other men chosen for this mission alongside you are out, fanned out along the ridge, doing the same bloody work that you contemplate before you, as these two men live and breathe and watch the night before you. I can't hear you. You might be muted, sir.
I can't see them yet. I'm just aware of their presence. Yeah.
No, given the combination of moonlight, the low pit fire light that they have, and that you know of their camp, you can see their silhouettes through the night.
Then I'm going to try and creep up to that vantage that I had the first time I was here. That kind of gave me the view of this camp.
Mm-hmm.
That is a 17 stealth.
The older man stops in the tail, and the younger one goes to complain, but like a raised hand silences him, and he turns his face in your direction, seeing only the night, but hearing something out of place. And as you stop to the point where you can only hear your heart, dum, 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 you see the man take a few steps. Who's there? Eager, is it you? And at that, the youth behind him slowly begins to rise.
Do I hear anyone else moving out here, or is it? I'm positive
Nope.
it's me that he's hearing. Okay. I am going to bonus action mark this old man as my quarry. And I'm going to go ahead and loose a shot. He's not, I don't see he's armed or anything. He doesn't have a weapon in his hand or.
You'd see that he bears a axe in a belt loop at his side, though he'd been like telling a story and warming his hands by the fire. So he's not not carrying a weapon, though he's armed.
Okay, then yeah, I'm gonna try and hit this guy. Mark him as my query. Okay, yeah. Oh dear God, 17 plus.
17 hits.
Yeah, 17 plus 8. So total of, good Lord, 14 damage.
Can you please roll a d10, sir?
I would love to. 6.
He is shocked, takes a couple of steps back as this arrow sprouts from like near his sternum, and both hands he like reaches around it, like protesting but not being able to like verbalize like what's happened. It takes this like stumble back towards the low firelight, and the youth next to him cries, "Father!" And the man is stunned until the end of his next turn.
I'm going to. Can I use the rest of my movement to kind of put myself in the vantage point above them, since my stealth has immediately been blown?
Yeah, I guess so. You'd just be able to break into a sprint because you've already given yourself away anyway, right, by the shot. So yeah, you could do that. Use the rest of your movement. You wouldn't be, just for the arbitrary sake, not at that high point yet, but less than a movement away from it now, moving in the trees by night.
Then rather than use it as a full sprint, I'll have it to kind of walk. I'm not trying to outwardly give my position away, but I'm still making my way towards that, just not taking my time.
Okay,
and that'll do it for me.
So Hangatir, you see this man with great straw war braids either side down his clean-shaven face, and they're capped at the bottom with burnished bronze cylinders. A warrior in the true sense of the word, not in like the regular descriptive one. His face is obscured by a nasal helm, but like the steel mask is the true one of man anyway. And so stands Solmond, captain of this place, trying to rouse the other warriors alongside him into a line that he likes, rather than the line that it currently seems. So he's no amateur to the war play. You mark him as like the most dangerous foe by those standing opposite your own force. There's a man who stands behind his shoulder with a long black iron-tipped ash spear, no helmet, and he's crying out war songs to the others. You can hear someone singing something down on the beach, but you're not sure of the words or who if the singer is of your own folk or the others. But here, this ash spear wielder's voice bellows out. You see others too, but as the battle rage seizes you, those lesser men begin to fade away from priority.
Hangatir has hatred of the other, so like he is exceptionally effective at killing skags and people who do magic, and servants of the giants. Like, is this ash spear person singing magic songs or just singing songs?
He's just singing battle songs like what a grandfather might teach his grandson as he first takes up the axe.
Yeah.
But the song that like is like discordant and unnerving to you from the distance is like you described, former, and it's coming from down on the beach, away from the battle that you're about to be in.
Right, so you can hear that, I guess, but he's focused on this warrior. and they're still forming up, so they're not ready. As far as I
Correct.
understand it,
They're not optimal.
yeah.
Yep. They're not technically in a shield wall, unlike you guys are.
So then I'll just shout for everyone to follow me, and I'm going to charge them. Because I think
Nice.
because I think like if they're not quite ready and we kind of do a little bit of a swine head sort of thing, it could be quite devastating. So I'm going to run and try and get this Solmond. Basically, like run. I mean, he's naked except for the bear pelt that he's wearing and the shield in his arm, and so he's just going to run as fast as he can, and just like leap up into the air and try and basically like dump tackle this man. So I need him to make a athletics.
This is Solmond.
Yes.
Okay, and you'll be rushing to get adjacent to Solmond, like crash your center into his center.
Yep.
Okay, that's going to trigger the Sentinel of the Ash Spear guy. So I'll roll his attack first because that would technically happen before the athletics check. But it's a miss. You see it coming and veer away with a guile step. The spear thrust is wide.
One of the new things I got is that when someone misses me with an attack... Oh no, it's when they hit me with an attack. Never mind. Okay.
Yeah. And the athletics check is an 11.
Okay, yeah.
From Solmond.
I almost can't lose. No, I do not. 16 on one of the dice. The other advantage and stuff. So, I guess he's not expecting this. Could you?
Nope.
Expect like this?
Because you had such an enviable position.
Yeah. To like run across the distance between the two, and just like run up to him and grab him. I guess like Hangatir's arm will wrap around his neck, and he's just going to barrel into him and grapple him. And so that's going to be it for me, I think.
Yeah, he's like, "Form up, you dogs! Give thou Lord time!" And like just as he turns back, you kind of emanated out of the darkness, and this like tree trunk fist is like rooted around his throat.
Yeah, so with him grappled, my armor class is now 24.
It is you who are the god. Gunnaldr, you can hear the blood shriek and steel quiver of battle going up in the distance, and know now that your assault force under the ruined Hangatir has been met with resistance. At the sound, or adding to the sound of that true fighting now, you hear the stomp of men forming up around a warlord, moving down towards where you bar the way towards the ships. You spy by the light of burning barns and hovels an older man with a grey roped beard jutting out from a full like spangled faced helm, moving at the rear of his forces, not at the front and center, as like the demands of a young warrior would recommend. And in a croaked voice is calling out to his men, addressing them as my men, and spurring them to honor and glory and defense of their lord and remembrances of their oaths. So you mark him as perhaps lord of this place. And his war gear is something of a sight to behold, exceeding both your own and Eric's next to you. In front of him, arrayed in his kind of decent-sized force, you note scared Fiesthymer, urged on by the shouts of their masters, thralls who have been armed and called to a reluctant defense of their lord. And alongside the old warlord in his fine garb, there's a man who jangles with chimes and different various pieces of like cutlery, almost like knives, forks, and such, bones and trinkets, and he sings this ululating song. It has a battle rhythm to it that matches like the sway of the, and then the sound of oak board interlocking of the shield wall in like this 3/4 measure as the host goes on almost to his beat, to his cadence. And something wriggles down your spine like an invisible eel at the certain articulation of words in his song. And oh, you wish that Era were here beside you now, or Hangatir, as Modolf's song can be heard. But yeah, their line has not smashed into yours. Still, Oleg is calling his men to form up into something decent before biting into you and locking you in place. So there is this no man's land between the two, where a few spears and stones and many an insult are being hurled in anticipation of the shield shake.
Rad. Gunlanders! Leave the leader to me. And he'd start naming out. That's part of what he's trying to do in finding his feet as a captain, like making sure every crew member knows that he sort of knows who they are and what they're good at and what they can do. Hildi, Eichel, go for the left flank. Arnstein, Svenja, take this scared fieldman on the right. We're here to take this place. So give me blood. And I'll spend my action using my command death, so that mechanically they all get damage on advantage on their damage dice. I don't get that, but since they're still approaching, and yeah, they might not be in the initiative order, my crew here, but I think that's what he would do anyway. Better our position here.
So your force, the immediate force around you, like your shield wall has buffs now to its AC and to its damage, like its damage is multiplied? Or no, roll with
yeah, so not AC, they just reduce all incoming damage by 5.
Oh man, that's awesome.
And so they have advantage on their damage rolls, yeah.
Oh, you're like Alexander. You're inheriting Thorkel One-Eyed and Black Eagle's fucking crook Viking force, and now adding your own Herseer abilities to it to become something else. Yeah, the shield wall is tight. It's proof against the spears and insults that are hurled, and at your behest, those men to the left and right flanks will engage those foes aforementioned, opening up the center to you to smash in and dole out damage, like verse to song at Oleg's center, where he looms behind a flimsier barrier now, prospect of your command. And am I taking that to mean that you will charge those forces too, or are you still waiting to receive them?
So that was my action, and I guess we would meet them in the charge. Yeah.
Okay, cool. The breaking of trees or the uprooting of men as the two shield walls collide. Music to my imagination. Modolf, the singer, will eye you by your war gear. Actually, what's your Gunland, right? So you have wealthy, yeah. So he would eye you as a warlord. You're a rich warrior, essentially. So he'd be able to mark you out by the blazing buildings and hatred for the Gunland betrayal, or perceived Gunland betrayal, and the father's fear of losing his son, which I guess is confirmed by your presence. He rails against it and orders his men to cut you down. And so Modolf will try and oblige him. He's going to try and curse you. He'll bite where his index finger and thumb meet that skin there and tear some away. Swallow the flesh down, but keep the blood to mingle with his saliva so it can give ill wet to the words he'll speak, profane and unknowable to you. Ooh. Yes, I'll need a wisdom save from you. DC 14, please. Oh, you've fled from the battlefield. There goes Heldig. They called the lucky.
No, sorry, I was just muted. Can you hear me?
Yeah, man, I can hear you now.
God damn. Success. That's an 18.
Yeah, so you don't know the words, but you know a curse when it's flung at you. But your belief in your luck and in your men and in the training of those you've laboured in the ore alongside and now command, you're for now proof against the probings of Modolf's curse. He will stand in between the ground between his lord and the kind of feared shield wall arrayed against you, and begin a different passive song to enhance them in a similar manner to your own, though nowhere near as effective. It just gives them the leadership, which is like a D4 to their skills and attacks. And so he'll stay where he is in the battle line, but at the rear of it. So you'd have to go through a couple of ranks of men to kind of incapacitate him by melee anyway. Next, Oleg, he'll charge in to the back and center and try and push your center through to the ships while his flanks are engaged and potentially lost. A desperate maneuver, you think? And so he has some purpose beyond hurting you. I think you'd think from like a tactician's point of view, like it's folly to do what he's doing, but he's trying it. It strikes you as odd, maybe for an instant, before he's tries to reinforce his center and drive through. He's going to take full movement to squeeze past men to get in the second rank and then take the dodge action there. biding his time for his next turn. But angling towards you, no doubt, is the burnished Oleg, who's the men called Dropnir, for his ability to find coin when it's needful. Hrodgeir the shepherd looks down at his chest where the arrow has sprouted from the night dark. And all pain, I guess, of himself is washed away from concern at his son. So he turns to go and speak a father's warning to him, but just blood dribbles down over the beard as he fumbles at the shaft of the arrow and remains stunned until the end of his next turn. Meanwhile, back in the battle, Solmund Dalengir looks down surprised, his last order cut off mid-sentence as your sausage fingers wrap around his throat. Thrafengir, he will just haul the Sayax and drive it thrice into thine side. Where his belly is, or belly or concrete. Let's find out. A 22, which is a miss, and a miss. So he stabs and stabs and stabs, and one even manages to like cut through and sunder a bit of the bear pelt, though none of them score on your flesh because you're not moving like a man, you're moving like a cat hauled up by its neck skin, or like a cricket at night. It's unpredictable, and he stabs air. And his teeth grit like an anvil being pummeled by Thor's hammer. You can hear them almost as you smell the onion ale, and now is it fear? And Solomond's breath. He spends his entire turn achieving nothing. Era, alongside Hrafngir, and the charge of the swine tooth is formed and punches into Solomond's center. You see him, and you see the spearman behind him, who is serving that purpose, long performed, where like he'll stand at the back and drive his spear into the man in front and try and haul him down for the one in front to kill at, though it's not working at the moment, as you see Hangatir thoroughly giving them what for in the center near.
Yeah, as Hangatir charges forward to grab this man, Ira will hear the call for charge that he bellows out and will follow suit, charging up alongside. She'll see the man next to him lunge out with the spear, the ash spear, and will mark him as a threat and will attempt to return her own spear back to that man in 18.
That hits.
Alrighty. And that'll be 8 piercing damage then as she lunges forward with the spear, catching him probably as he lunges for Hangatir.
The wound is quite severe for the man, though it's not a killing strike, nor does it bloody him. And yeah, his attention turns away now from trying to harry the foe of his master Solmund, and to you, a shield maiden who's come screaming out of the dark, or like dropped out of some infernal hovel that's spewing flame now, where it once harbored life. Now it's bringing death. The scared fearmen will form up around Oleg and push, swarming towards you, Gunnaldr, when they are smashed by the left flank of your own that you sent to forestall them, and bloody violence begins to play out there, but they're obstructed from getting to you for now as your orders are being carried out, so they actually spend their turn in action, engaging your figures, engaging your allies. Ormson of the Ash Spear, like clutching at the shaft of your spear as you've driven it into him, Ira, is going to raise his own up and try and drive it into you in like sick mimicry. He'll jab twice, once for like the shoulder and once for he'll rip it out, twisting and try and put into the belly for a 24 and a crit fail. So he drives the spear and lightning pillages like your collarbone. And he like twists the black iron tip savagely before pulling it out. It'll spew blood, and you'll take 11 piercing damage. And as it spatters him, he smiles in the success of glee and goes to like twist it into your belly, but you're ready for this, and you step back and hook it into your underarm, and then twist sidelong. And I don't feasibly see how a human can break a properly made ash spear without supernatural power. But rather than break it, like the rules I was going to say, it's disarmed of him, like dropped to the ground or rendered useless for now unless he takes action to regain it. So yeah, he pummels you with it first, and then you like rip it from him. Standing opposite him now, he actually had no shield because he was using it two-handed, so he's just got his bare bloody hands for now against you. Which one was Vestine? Vestine Hrogirson is like, "Father, no!" And he rushes up alongside his dad and like fusses at the arrow a moment, and then turns defensively in front of him and pulls out an axe out of his own belt loop, menacing at the dark. And I guess hearing you like walking through it, stalking like a scooter gungan, he swallows a youth's fear and adopts a son's courage, and like sprints out in your general direction in the night, like hurling inaudible curses and oaths. Seeking for you. He'll fumble about in the dark with his movement and his action to kind of locate and come up into the midst of you, Hrafngeir, while his father coughs blood and groans nearby to the pit fire. He'll take his movement and action to get adjacent to you, and that's all he can do for now. After Vestine, son of Throgar, the armed thralls, they'll push through your right flank to harry at your side, Gunnaldr. And as you see Oleg barreling forward trying to get at you, the first of these armed thralls with mace and spear and kind of screaming half just to suppress their fear, come barreling forth, and what few spill through your iron shield wall or who aren't cut down by your own men will harry at your fine self. Two of the peons, one with cudgel, who swings at you for a crit, and another with spear, who misses.
I will absorb that crit.
Oh, break it on the shield or absorb it?
Yeah, what have I got? Because I can do 2 on my shield and 1 on my helmet, so I'll do this one on my shield.
Yeah, so what would have been a perhaps potentially killing blow, you like turn to the side and rather than facing Oleg at the front, accept this mace blow, boom, right on the boss of your shield. It like jars your arm and you reel back, and so like struck by another blow. And all the damage up from the crit. It just takes away the critical effect, hey, not the double dice. Yeah. So 6, 3, 9, and a miss. So just 9 damage, 9 piercing damage all up.
Still hurts.
And Fawny the Red, who leads these forces from the front for his elderly lord Oleg. Guard, I guess, in similar war gear to you, because you mentioned a lot of red trim and such. This man is red-haired and takes his namesake to his tabardry as well. So I guess he's kind of like a similar garb to you and similar looking, similar age, maybe a little older, but marking you as a captain because you'd called out those orders before, which had been carried out. He wants to try and cut the head off the snake here so he can relieve the forces that he can hear fighting inside the town against Tangatir and his lot. So he will move and then disengage so that he can squeeze in past other soldiers and such to get adjacent to you without taking harm. And the fighting and blood work begins in earnest here in the now increasingly chaotic center. After Fawny the Red, it goes back to the top. That's 1 round. Christ. Nailed Christ. Hrafngeir, you're the next to act. You are muted, my lord.
So this boy is next to me.
Yeah, a boy's not for 16, 15 or 16 years of age, adolescent on the cusp of
this
manhood.
adolescent. And did I see what he was armed with?
He has an axe, a similar type as his father, pulled from a belt loop.
Is he so close that if I fired at him with my bow, it'd be at disadvantage?
Yeah, he used his movement and his action.
Okay.
Adjacent to you.
I'm going to use my, or throw my, not throw. I'm going to take my bow in my offhand and draw my sex and try to stab him before he approaches on me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 14 on the die for a total
14
of
is his AC.
perfect.
So that hits.
Perfect. He takes max damage plus, so 7 points of damage. No, I lied. 9 points of damage as I stab him.
There's a shriek of pain you're rewarded with, and the feeling of blood as it spatters like warm soup on your hand at the wound in the youth's side. But it's not a mortal one. Although he's wounded, he's only nearly bloodied.
So I think that this kind of is like a lash as I draw it and swipe with the same blow, kind of putting him in front of me, trying to keep the fire in between, not the fire, keep him in between me and the fire,
Mm-hmm.
so I can keep an eye on this old man.
And then next after you will be Hangatir facing Sulmund.
Yeah, I'm gonna drag him out of the shield wall, pull him bodily, just like elbowing and headbutting people who get in the way, and pull him out towards my shield wall, which I guess is like going to hit, or maybe they're staying, which would have been smarter. I'm not really sure what they did, but wherever they are, I'm gonna drag him back into our shield wall, so that
Oh god.
so that like 20 people can just stab him to death.
Yeah, like Caesar.
Yep. So I'm just gonna because I can move, I guess half speed. If that won't get me into the middle of our shield wall, I'll dash and pull him full speed into the middle of the shield.
Fuck. Okay, yeah, you can do that. If you want to expend your full round to just drag him into your own concentrated forces for them to murder him, yeah, I'll say that many people like just stab him to death on the ground muling, and it's the most inglorious death of like a good warrior there's been in recent time, because I can't feasibly see a way out of
those. Yeah, I don't know how he could do anything.
But for magic, you drag him away, and he's just swallowed up into the field of steel and fire, away from his men, and you away from yours. But that's all right when you're this crazed. I guess you're not leading anymore anyway. Just killing.
So I guess he's just like howling, and like he pulls him into the, and I guess he probably like pulls him and then just shoves him bodily into the waiting men, who just like begin stabbing down into him.
God.
And like turn back and look at like the ash spear guy, or like one of the other big guys in their shield wall, and like point at them like, "You're next. This is happening to you as well." And then just like slaveringly howl and murder and scream the word "kill" over and over again.
Yeah, you'll be more than 30 feet away from your next quarry as you turn like blood spattered back towards the melee. You will provoke an opportunity of attack from Ormson Ash Spear, because he had a turn, so he's got his reaction back from when he'd stabbed at you before. So he gets. Oh fuck my lord! Yeah, he did.
He can punch me.
And because no, he can't, because he needed the reach. He was behind the dude you were fighting, so he can only get you attack with reach. So actually, he does nothing while you rip his lord away and hide him in death.
It's so horrible.
Gunnaldr, you don't know about any of this. You just know that men have broken through and are harrying you. 2 peons at your right with a mace and spear seeking, and in front of you, almost like a spectre or phantasmal mirror of yourself, a challenger who looks like you in many ways, of hair, of shield, of tabardry. But yeah, many foes stand ready for the smiting.
Yeah, Gunnaldr's drawn his sword, and he would have had it drawn for a little while now, but clangs it against the metal rim of his shield, and sort of goes into this limber, sort of somewhat fluid stance and movements with his practiced sword style. That is, relatively foreign to Asblot. It's very much a Gunlander thing. So, and he meets both of these two that are coming at him blow for blow, deflecting with his shield and sword, and trying to strike where he can. But he's fighting very much defensively, and mechanically, I'll be taking the dodge action.
Nothing wrong with a dodge action.
I'm gonna die otherwise, man.
It's the mortar that campaigns are built on, is the dodge action.
Yeah.
It's just like blow after blow, like rain down on your shield and helm and armor, and men like jumping in front of the arrow that was meant for you for now.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Which is Gunnaldr's style. I just usually have PCs to do more damage for me, so I'm just relying on my nameless crew.
They're holding their own more than holding their own under your leadership with those mechanical buffs. Like the fight is not pushing you back; it's just merely engaged and holding you. Which attrition-wise, you're going to win, of course, because you've got Hangatir essentially. Like if you bite and hold the bulk force, then you add Hangatir, they have attrition, essentially. Glorious, sort off the dodge. After you, Modolf, the singer, he will, seeing his lord charge in, he doesn't want him to go out of the aura that he can affect. So he'll move in with him and draw a sword. A southern sword, but graven with northern runes. And he'll take up a different song, a battle song now, and begin the dance of his sword skill. He's going to move and disengage so that he can rush in front of Oleg, and so like wound and harry you, Gunnaldr, that his lord might give you a mortal blow and seize the glory for himself. So there'll be no attack incoming because it takes his movement and his action, but it'll be a fourth foe engaging you. And then Oleg, Dropnir himself, he's going to move forward and become the fifth as the enemy center smashes in your own. And since you're leading from the front here, you will face the cream of his crop. Oleg will roar for his men, kill, 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 and then raising his an axe in lieu of the sword which you gave to Karl Eric, he will bring it down upon thee twice for a 21 and a miss. Oh, hang on, with disadvantage, a higher than that, so 21 to hit.
That was against me, was it? Sorry?
Yep.
Yeah, that'll hit.
Okay, the grey rope-bearded old man hits you with an axe. You will take only 9 slashing damage.
Still rough. What I can do is, so I'll take that, but I don't have any adjacent allies at the moment, do I?
Yeah, you do.
Oh, yeah, cool. So I spend my reaction, and an adjacent ally can spend theirs to make a melee attack against the guy who hit me.
And who will that ally be, do you think?
Tall Ironstein. Oh, no, I sent him off to the right, didn't I? Let's say Ulfmunder, bald Ulfmunder.
Okay. He likes to swing about his mace in 2 hands once his shield's been splintered, like it has been this evening. Was it with advantage that he gets to make the strike?
Just regular.
Just regular? Yeah, he misses. It just clangs off the shield boss of an adjacent foeman.
Worth a shot.
Yes, sir. Don't ask, don't get, as they say. Old Oleg can only do that, so it'll pass now to Hrodger the shepherd. He's not stunned anymore as he finally painfully pulls the arrow out and dooms himself from the bleeding and hemorrhage that causes, though his son's life is at stake, and so he cares not. Rather than rushing towards it, though, he stumbles back, leading a crimson snail trail behind him to gather up the bow and quivers about their gear, and will notch one as he stumbles like a drunkman towards the dark and the cries of pain coming from his son as he's engaged with you, Hrafngeir. And he'll let fire into where he thinks you are with disadvantage, or where he sees your silhouette. And an arrow just whizzes past you in the night to disappear somewhere. So you've got the youth adjacent to you and the father probably some 30 to 40 feet back away from you. After Hrodger, Solmund is next. He rises up just to raise a hand at your ankle as you stride past, and someone drives a spear down through it and nails him to the bloody earth, and he's gone from this world to Corpse Hall. Ira, you see this happen behind you and turn your eyes back to Ormson now, adopting a wrestler's pose. Looks like he's about to try and throttle you now that you've cast his spear aside and it's been picked up by one of your own warriors.
Yeah, she'll feel the sting just below her neck where the spear had caught her. But then seeing this man now disarmed and still shieldless, will grin with sickening vengeance and attempt to take the spear and return the favor. So hopefully 14 is all I got all up. I don't know if that'll get him.
Yeah, it's not enough. It just grazes off the scale that girts his belly.
Yeah, she'll let out a frustrated grunt as the spear glances off, and then that'll be it.
Okay, the 2 scared Feardmen will try and club and gut you to death, Gunnaldr, with disadvantage from your dodge. 2 satisfying thuds off the oak of your shield. They damage nothing but your paintwork. The wounded Ormson bearer of the Ash Spear, or previous bearer of the Ash Spear, will grapple you. Ira, opposed athletic, please. DC being 23.
So as a reaction, instead, she'll like see this man lunging to grab her, and she'll like start singing this like short melodic snippet in a strange language, this like weird Odinic song. And as the man goes to grab her, she'll like twist and move in this like impossible manner, and this man will like grab what feels like mist, his arms not being able to grab hold of her, as she'll sing the song of Odin. That song which will set me free. So as a reaction to anything that would grapple me or restrain me, I'll sing the song, and the man will not be able to grab me.
Sorcery. Yeah, his eyes go wide in surprise as his hands wrap around the air of your throat, and grits his teeth and will look about, I think, turning aside his focus for now to pick up some weapon with which to smite you. And no doubt, given the slaughter about here, will just pull a spear from some guy's gut or an axe from someone's face as they crunch and scream. And he'll grasp it all the tighter and gird himself to attempt to slay you, Shield Maiden. But for now, that's all he can do with his action. Well, he's got a double attack, so he can try and grapple twice, right? He can grapple. DC 9. Oh, is it? Okay, in that case, he tries to fumble for your throat twice, but yeah, both times you zip aside like a zephyr. And he grabs nothing for now. Vestine hauls up his axe in 2 hand in like a lumberjack fashion, tries to bring it down on your head, Raffengear. But you see it coming, and it may not hit you for a 16.
A 16 meets my armor class.
Surprisingly, the youth hits. You take 4 slashing damage. Slashes open your jerkin, parts the sewing and leather there, and scores your flesh. But glancing 1 with the axe, so not one to give you a mortal wound. He just hacks away ferociously. The armed thralls swarm about you, peons that they are. Oh no, that's what they were cut off by the left flank. They're still held in place away from you for now. I'll say for another round. Gunnaldr. Forney, the red though, is not clutching his sword tight. Will drive low to make you bring your shield down, and then high with the hilt to try and break your face. With disadvantage for both of them, you avoid a crit for a 14 to hit, which I'm sure is a miss, and the second one is a miss. Yeah, you are invulnerable now. Raffengear.
My attention focused on this youth. I'm going to make another stab at him with my 6 for 12 on the die, for a total of 18, which I imagine hits.
Certainly. Yeah, he's got an AC of 14.
He's going to take 8 damage.
He's very badly wounded, nearly slain. He cries out in pain.
I'm going to... I'm not going to move. I'm going to try and keep my position, keep this boy in front of me, in between me and his father.
Mm-hmm. Hangatir.
Okay, so I'll move the rest of the way so that I can get to Ormson.
Mm-hmm.
Is his spear on the ground or near him?
Yep.
Yeah. Is there any 2-handed weapons on the ground? Anything big?
His ash spear, which is a boar spear.
Oh, baby. Okay, yeah, I'll pick that up and I'm going to shove it through his face with all of my might. So, probably going to hit 12 on the die plus 6, so 18.
That hits.
Boar spear is 2d6, baby.
Yeah.
And because I'm... Oh, yeah. Okay. So I treat the lowest number as the highest number when I have a 2-handed heavy weapon. So it's going to be 2d6 plus 4, so it's going to be 14 damage.
Far out. It does go through his cheek and out the other side. You twist it and rip it back, forever maiming his visage, though he'll likely die in the coming moments anyway. But yeah, he's mortally wounded, nearly slain, and his face is just a pulpy mess.
Okay. Happy with that. That's it for me.
Okay, Gunnaldr, back down in the shield wall where the striking, searching thrusts of spears are all about.
Yeah, he just while he's trading blows and doing his best to avoid getting himself gutted by first these 2 warriors and then quickly became 4, I believe, engaged against him. And he knows that he has to change the odds a little bit. So he calls out, repeats his order from earlier. I said, give me blood! And he deflects a few blows more fervently, and then sort of, so he'll use the dodge action and then move back to a couple of ranks in the shield wall. But I just realized I have to disengage as an action instead. So is it a choice of dodge or disengage?
Yeah, it's up to you.
Yeah, true. That's probably the way to go. Yeah, I'll do that.
So you wriggle free now that the enemy's like punched into your center, and now they are kind of like surrounded, I guess, without having the benefit of being adjacent to you.
Mm.
And you're back at the rear of your shield wall?
Yes.
Okay. Sly maneuver, my lord. Quite a wriggler, that one.
Just, and yeah, I guess as he's got further back and further from the very front line, his voice and commands have gotten louder to compensate. And calling out his crew by name. Trying to reinforce that sort of leadership style, giving people the heads up when they're about to get gutted and calling for blood, that kind of thing. And he stares daggers at this guy. He's basically his Asblot, the counterpart, this Forney the Red, and he wants to kill him when he when he can.
You, Red Bright Lord, says a weird crackly voice from underneath the strange dyed fur caps of Modolf the singer. I curse your loins. May your testicles shrivel infertile. May your sword hand grow weak. May Nidhogger eat at your nethers. May you be cast there and denied the valiant hall of the dead. I will wound thee. Nothing, no steel or tongue can be proof against me, he says. You might even believe him. Roll a DC 14 wisdom save.
Oh, gods. Oh, that's not good. That is a 7.
He believes, and you believe, that he can strike you down with some power unknowable to you. And with that, he's going to rush forward, provoking opportunity of attack, no doubt, to get through 2 lines of armored warriors. With your damage multipliers, I'm just going to automatically say that he's bloodied by the time that he gets to you, because of like the stack of your passives, your passive abilities. And you're cursed by him, so you'll take D8 necrotic damage whenever he hits you with an attack or a curse. And he's lining up to do that at his next available opportunity, which will be next turn. Then it's Oleg Dropnir's turn. He's going to take the dodge action. He's going to stand where he is and use his interaction, not for... he's got the shield and sword. So shield and axe. So he's actually going to have to drop his axe as a free and haul out his warlord's horn. And rather than fighting on, he's going to blow it. 2 succinct, sharp blasts. You 2 over by the blazing buildings, over the corpse of Solmund, hear it punctuating through the night. And then he turns once back to the long hall to see if there's any effect. and then back to the axe that's laying in a pool of blood, and he'll reach for it. Hrodgeir, the shepherd, I imagine you've kind of got his son in like this near lethal embrace, Hrafngeir. I don't think it's likely that he's actually going to fire again. I think he'll drop the bow and rush forward, drawing or fumbling with bloody hands at the axe at his belt loop. And since you're 40 feet from him, he'll have to move dash to get adjacent to you. So that's all he can do for now. Solmund is slaying Ira. The badly wounded Osmond has a spear through his face as Hrafngeir, near naked. Probably naked by now, I guess. Fuck, you can't run around killing people wearing just a bear pelt before it falls off. Bloody and naked has driven a spear through the face of this foeman before you, but still he seeks with these large gnarled hands for your throat.
Yeah, Ira will see the spear in his head and try to add one to his chest. With the 19 on the die,
It's a hit.
25. It will deal 8 more piercing damage. She'll like choke up on the spear as he like reaches up close to her and just try to jam it up past whatever cracks in the armor she can hit.
2 red snakes writhe out of his nostrils as his like sinus is flooded by gore from his lungs. As you like twist the spear and pull it free, parts of him drop out forever, and he like stumbles down into the carpet of dying beneath you. At that, you hear those like trumpeting calls, the twin calls, and look about to see that those warriors rune marked by Hangatir that still stand with you are butchering the last of Solman's followers around you, and the fight of this part done for now. There's the chaos all about the town, and then fires that have spread from the fires that you calculated, now having its own chaotic, infernal mind, and people running to and fro, some seeking for loved ones or dragging wounded from the field, others looking like they might harass you or stop you before folding away into cowardice in the dark at the sight of the blood-spattered body of Hrafngeir and you rune-marked wolves. And you hear intense fighting down by the beach, where from there is the source of that horn call. Pushing after you, the scared Fjordman are cut down to a man. Ormson too, dead. Vestane will move around to flank you with his father, Hrafngeir, and with advantage try and cut you down. 16 to hit, which hits from earlier, I believe. So that's going to be 7 slashing damage. And the armed thralls similarly are butchered by your men as they pursue you futilely through the center into the trap. The steel noose tightens and decapitates them. Thorny, the red, calls out to you through like the field of screaming men and the swooping of like oak shields. You, coward, runner, swimmer, fight me, southerner, accept a duel. Or are you too coward for that?
Come and get me, and we can cross blades.
He disengages and rushes up adjacent to you. Your own men will look to you to see if you want them to cut him down or you're accepting the duel.
Yeah, no, I want him to cut him down.
Oh, there's a ripple and murmur through the fabric of morality as the steel gauntlet does in for Forney, but that easy kill will not be forgotten by the Aesir. Yeah, the words of dueling and honor and cowardice on his tongue is just cut short when a spiked mace collapses in the side of his cheek and he goes down, shuddering, mewling, infantile and fucked. Hrafngeir.
I'm kind of tired of this kid swinging this axe at me, so I'm going to try and, after this last swing, making contact, I'm going to try and push it away and plunge my axe into his chest. 18 on the die.
Certainly. He wears fur hides and a shepherd's cap.
7 damage. I haven't rolled over
Describe
on
his
4.
death.
I look at his father in the face as he has like approached me with his axe, and I just plunge this into the chest cavity of the boy. I imagine there's like a shriek that's cut short as his wind is stolen from him, and I'll remove it, like slinging the blood into the snow that has been trampled about us and warmed by our boots. And he's still my quarry, so I'm coming for him next.
Yeah, he shrieks and his voice breaks pitifully at what you've made him witness. And he sees red and is insensate. And even though he's not frightened, he's in fact fearless because of witnessing this. I'm going to give him the mechanical effect of frightened because he's just incensed and crazed and traumatized. A madness comes upon him. A murderous rage as he utters in a shaky voice, Vestine! Hangatir, all lay smote about you, and by firelight you see that there's further battle going on, and now that Alfir tongue is slinging curses.
Yeah, he can hear that, and it's like he's looking around at who to kill, and he like grabs one of the men who's sort of fleeing and like smashes his head against one of the buildings, and then like a dog that hears something just like is listening, and then like turns his head to the side, and then just begins running, sprinting as fast as he can in that direction. He doesn't tell anyone because he's like not capable of speech, so he's just running, I guess like barefoot and naked through the town, like all painted black, just towards the sound of that song. I guess Ira probably can see him running, and the rest of them as well. But I'm just going to dash until I get there.
What's your movement speed, and do you have a bonus action or anything like that where you can get extra movement?
No, my speed is just 30, so I'll just be dashing. I don't have.
Yeah, you'd be inside of the melee on the beach, but not engaged in it yet, even though you're sprinting quite swiftly towards it.
Okay. Even once I'm in sight of it, I will just begin screaming and howling so that the people at the back of their shield wall turn around and go, "What the fuck?" Which might be enough for one of our guys to stab them. And that's it for me. I'm just going to run.
Yeah. They're essentially being flanked now. This doomed force has just been flanked by a Hangatir. Gunnaldr, you see the gods answering your unspoken prayers by way of reinforcements approaching at the rear center of the enemy who threaten to swarm and break through to their ships, almost as if the twin horn blasts of Oleg Dropnir had summoned his doom by the way of Hangatir manifest.
Yes, and the vision of Hangatir, naked save for a bare pelt, charging down, even though he looks nothing like Odin is always described. He's overcome with the joy of as if seeing the Allfather himself come to join him in battle. And he just cries out, Odin! As he continues deflecting blows and trying to skewer people with his sword. But mechanically, again, taking the dodge action.
Worthy, my friend. You don't have to say it with any shame in your voice. There's nothing wrong with the dodge.
All good. No, it's more that I want to be able to kill someone, but I'm very happy taking the dodge action.
Yeah.
Thanks though, man. Yeah. Definitely need to.
I'm just jiving.
Yeah.
This crazed shamanic Gothi is going to make good on his necrotic curse to your nethers and try and stab you there with his crooked Sayax with disadvantage. 12 is the lowest, plus 5 is 17 to hit.
Sorry, scrambling for unmute. Blocked off the shield.
Nice for you. He cries something inaudible, some babble in protest at how your shield skill is denying him what he seeks. He's unaware, I guess, of Hangatir's presence at the rear because one screaming bloody naked dude sounds much like the next in a field of horror such as this. Oleg Dropnir, though, is closer to it because he'd stayed back to blow the horn and command his rear while those others plunged after Gunnaldr. So he turns, an old man past his prime, weighed down with responsibility, fear, and armor that's meant for a younger man's shoulder, turns to face this maniac freshly born out of battle, slick with his progress. and he'll turn, reach down for that axe that he dropped into the puddle of blood so he could blast the horn. And with prayers for his daughter, rushes forth to meet his fate, axe in hand, Hangatir. And he's going to rush forward so that the boss of his shield is kind of like a point growing larger before you, like a sphere coming close before over the top. The axe strike will come down and gets the single, which will be a crit. I shit you not.
Okay.
Do you have any absorbs?
I do have a shield, yeah. I don't have it because of I picked up the big spear.
Grim.
No, I don't. Yep, that's suffer.
Okay, so it's going to be the hatchet, so it's going to be 8 slashing damage.
Okay.
Oh god, my lord. Yeah, you can't be harmed, but you can be critted.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay, so a D20, please.
17. It's probably very bad.
Oh gosh. Make a DC 15 con save.
I have advantage on. Is it con or grit?
It says Constitution, but I feel like it should be Grit actually, because the one above it is Grit.
Yeah.
I think this one just might not have been edited. So make it a Grit check, DC 15.
Yeah, it's like a 22 or something, 23.
Okay, so saving throw will be knocked unconscious. So you are on a successful save. You are instead stunned until the end of your next turn. You have disadvantage on attacks until the end of the encounter. The bottom side of your jaw has been severed off, like shorn off by the axe strike. Oh god. Powerful strike to your opponent's chin, breaks it in several places, but with an axe, I imagine it's shorn a chunk of the side of your chin away. And what would be a concussive blow that would like maybe kill or knock unconscious another man simply stuns you until the end of your next turn and gives you disadvantage on attacks until the end of this encounter, which is kind for a partial chin loss.
Oh my god.
And that's all the old man can do for now. Hrodgeir, the shepherd. Sorry.
I have a reaction when I get hit that I can hit him, but am I stunned when I get hit? Yeah.
When
So
you
at
take the
least
damage, you
mechanically
are stunned.
Then yeah,
Oh, sorry.
typically, yeah, the condition is affected as like part of the attack. So
Okay,
like
yep.
I would expect mechanically that you wouldn't be able to.
Cool. Yep. Okay, that's it for me.
Okay, Hrodgeir tears, blinding his vision with disadvantage, will try and cut you down, Thrafengir, clutching his axe in 2 hands. But they're clumsy, grief-stricken strikes. Then you can like step back and with like whoosh just in front of your face of the axe head. But it does not strike thee. Sulmund is slain. Ira, you see the naked Hangatir rush off into the gloom to commence further violence, and the armored men rune marked about you begin to follow like swans heading south.
Yep, and as Hangatir rushes off, Ira will be close behind. I'll just move and dash to get, I guess, to where he is. Or close.
So you'd see him and Oleg locked in mortal combat.
Yeah, I imagine she'll like run up and actually be like caught off guard and almost like gasp as she sees like literally a chunk of Hangatir gone and just like blood streaming down of like this invincible man who's never been harmed and seems to be invincible, has like been badly wounded, at least visually, if not mechanically. And I think that would surprise her. But other than that, that'll be my turn.
Okay, after Ira, I have to go back up to my other initiatives. Apologies. After Ira is the Feardman who is slain, Ormson who is slain, Vestine who is slain, Armed Thralls who is slain, Fawny the Red who is treacherously slain. Frafengir, you're the next to act.
Would I be able to pick up the boy's hatchet?
Yep,
Like,
as an interaction. I believe you get one a turn.
Yeah, then I'm going to drop my sex and grab that and kind of swing upwards at him, the shepherd. This is I imagine strength. Total of 15.
15 hits.
How much is hand or how much is
D6 plus strength.
Okay. I can reroll melee damage. I rolled 2 1s, so he is going to take 3 damage.
Yeah, he's bloodied now, bleeding from the chest and now from the shoulder where you've like hacked at him with this axe.
Oh, he's my query. Another 2 points of damage.
Okay, yeah, he's still up.
Okay.
He's not long for this world, but he's still dangerous and impossible that he would flee, I think. So it turns now to you, Hangati. You rushed into the rear of the enemy, and their chieftain, old as he is, surprised by scoring a nasty wound to your face. You feel the agony rack you, paralyzing your limbs, denying your will.
Yeah, I guess he doesn't even like figure out what's happening. He's run up thinking like this is going to be, this man is old. He doesn't even see a man, probably. He sees like a sheep or something like that, and then there's just like this, and I guess like some bone like flies in one direction, and there's like this, blood, you know, and then he just kind of like wobbles, but like doesn't fall dead. And I'm sure like the guy is shocked that he's not dead because he hit him in the face with an axe, full force, and sheared off some bone. But nonetheless, Hangati just sort of stands there like bleeding heavily into his beard, and I guess it like runs down all over his chest, and he like looks down for a second at it, and then like back up, sort of glazy-eyed at the man, but still very much alive.
Gunnaldr, you see the old Thegn locked in combat with your berserk champion. He's too far away to affect the wasp stings that come for you so close around now. As Modolf searches for your belly with his crooked sayax.
He feels that odd sort of sensation, which is probably all in his head, but he certainly believes in it. This sort of intangible tugging of his skein, that as his luck sort of tugs upon his fortune and guides it into better futures, as far as he's concerned. And he feels this shifting of their side is definitely going to prevail here, he feels, but his men are overwhelming the enemy, but him himself is definitely feeling like he's starting to become overwhelmed and surrounded. And he just his arms are starting to ache, I imagine, as he's swinging his sword and holding up his shield and sort of moving around fluidly as he takes the dodge action again. And I guess, tries to scream out to his men as he has been doing the whole time, I guess, screaming for blood.
Nice. In that case, Modolf will try and attack you once again, but with disadvantage. You avoid another crit for a miss. So it just strikes, but it's rebuffed by the rim of your shield. And he something in an old language, in an old tongue forgotten here in the south. Oleg will seize the initiative and try and take your head from your shoulders with a swipe of his axe to your neck. With advantage, I believe, because you're stunned, which is 19 on the die, even given that your berserker's probably going to hit 24 to hit. Far out. That is perverse. You will take only 5 slashing damage. The thick corded muscle of your neck serving for chainmail. The axe like hits. Maybe you twist at the last minute. Shears flesh and muscle, but not vital artery. And he'll reel back for another strike, but won't bring it till next round. Hrodgar is staggering back and forward, leaking himself all over the corpse of his son while he tries to pillage you with this axe a final time, Hrafngeir, for a miss, of course. How tragic. It's just like over your head, and by now it's almost like pitiful. If your own life weren't at risk and you weren't wounded and in pain, you would be able to pity it. but I guess it's just all reaction and hot blood and adrenaline at the moment. But that's all for useless old grief-stricken Hrodgear. Ira, you stand at the precipice of the beach where there's men writhing around in their last moments, like carrion around the duel between Thegn Oleg, called Dropnir, and Berserk Hangatir. Both men are giving it to each other. They're probably the closest foe to you.
Yeah, Ira will see Hangatir and like shrug away the stun of seeing him so wounded already, but will charge forwards towards the lord that he's locked in battle with, and with a 24 and for max damage, 12 piercing damage, will lunge forward with the spear.
Oh, nice. That's a hit. Roll a d10.
9.
He loses his reactions and has disadvantage on attacks until the end of his next turn. And is now flanked by Ira with a spear through his belly and is mortally wounded, nearly slain.
Rad. That'll be my.
For neither it is slain. Hrafngeir.
I'm going to raise my hand to this man for the final time. Good Lord. 17 on the die.
Definitely. Thankfully.
Yeah,
mercifully.
Thankfully. He takes 11 points of damage.
Death.
It's a chop to the collarbone neck. The blood's kind of, as I pull the blade out, spurts on the trees behind him. I believe that I can probably just now hear like the roar of battle taking place up the coast from me a little ways.
Yeah, a great clamor being carried on the night breeze.
I'm going to leave the horse, kind of making note of its position, and use whatever movement I have to move towards the fray.
Mm-hmm.
That'll do it for me.
Okay. Yeah, it'll take you some time to get into the town by foot, but yeah, you can definitely begin so. Hangatir, locked in combat with the old Jarl, is fighting with a desperation you've not seen in some time, or felt in some time.
I've had enough of this. His consciousness returns to him, and he realizes that he's been quite badly wounded, and probably feels the bottom part of his teeth sticking out of where the jaw's been severed. An unnatural feeling. And so he just sees pure red and is gonna go nuts on this guy. So I'm just gonna because I have disadvantage attacks, right, for the rest of the fight.
Yes.
Oh, but I'm flanking with Ira?
Correct.
Did you say
It'll be straight up.
He was bloodied?
Yeah, he's very badly. He was a glass cannon essentially, one hit and he's badly bloodied, nearly slain. He's got a spear through his belly.
All right, so I'm going to take the boar spear then, the ash spear from Wormson, that I carried with me. I'm going to stab it down into him. So 16 on the die.
That's going to hit.
6. Okay.
18 is his, yeah.
Okay, so then we're looking at 10 plus 4 is 14 damage.
Yeah, I imagine the spear just goes through the front of his face, out the back. You twist it and pull it back, and there's a sickening crunch, and grey and red spews out of the ruin, and he drops, disappears like a curtain dropped between you and Ira.
Yeah, in a weird moment of clarity, Hangatir will squat next to him and hold his hand on the blade or the axe, so that he can go to corpse hole. He needs to be there because he wounded Hangatir, and so he wants him in the final battle. He'll take a second to hold his hand while he goes.
In that case, you'd hear his final words, which are the same, each one. Bjerg, Bjerg, Bjerg. Oh.
Yeah, he'll hold his hand through that, and then just like previously, he'll hear a noise. He'll hear that song and then his will just snap back into like murder, and sprint towards the shield wall to find this singer.
Yeah, that were if you use your movement to go from the corpse of the Thegn to Modolv, it would take you full movement, and you would be flanking now with Gunnaldr, your captain. The plan has come full circle. And I imagine cinematically that you realize this from where you are now, beleaguered Gunnaldr, but Modolv in front of you does not.
Yep, that's how I imagined it too.
And it's your go before him.
Yeah, yep. So yeah, I imagine Gunnaldr's as they're sort of trading blows, he'd make some snappy remark as he sees Hangatir come charging up behind him, and go from this very defensive fighting that he's done and just launch into attacks. So here we go. It's a 14 to hit.
That does not do it. He's his guile step to dance aside of your.
I'll use my reaction as an ability once per battle to turn a miss into a hit. So I imagine just like flavor wise, it's just like that as Hangatir and Ira right behind on her turn will be charging up to this man. He'll suddenly realize and be distracted by like the thundering sound of footsteps and screams right behind him, allowing Gunnaldr a chance to hit. So that'll be a hit, Gunnaldr.
Excellent. That'll be 10 damage then with the sword.
I believe that's the first time Modolv has been scored.
True, yes.
Yep. Yeah, he's shocked as his jerkin is ripped and his mail links are burst and his chest opens up and gives blood out. So he like reels back from your strike and probably bumps into the blood chin and filth pulp beard of Hangatir and realizes he's stuck between two types of fate.
Yes, and then it's the cinematic follow-up of the shield strike using one of my new abilities, so my bonus action, and I can either shove him, knock him prone, or try and bash him. I think I'll try and knock him prone with my shield.
Sure.
So that'd be athletics, yeah. So that's the 16.
Is this, if you hit his AC, you succeed, or is this opposed?
I think it's opposed.
Okay. He fails.
Awesome. So yeah, he gets pinballed between him, Gunnaldr and Hangatir, and then just cracked across the face with his shield.
Rung like a bell, and it drops to the ground. Still alive and able to know pain, which is quite a predicament now. Oleg goes to Valhall with thoughts of his daughter. Hrodgir goes to Valhall with thoughts of his son. Ira comes to the fray.
Ira will charge forward, seeing the singer on the ground. Will bring the spear up and just try to shove it down through his gut and pin him to the beach with a advantage because he's prone. Will be a 19 on the die for 9 piercing.
He is bloodied now and screams protest. One of his teeth shatters under the painful pressure, and blood begins to bubble up beneath as you twist the head free of his ruined guts. He's still alive and mewling, but yeah, badly wounded. Yeah, Hrafngeir, you've come to the outskirts of Sudbrand, and by the sound of it, the plan and slaughter is at its zenith or reaching some horrible crescendo. It's worse than Fiesthymer because in it, it's kind of deafening, but from out here, you can hear all of the various cadences and trills and solos of anguish that men can make each other play. And something stalls you a second before will makes you take another step closer towards the maelstrom of violence playing out in burning Sudbrand. There are refugees and those routed spewing out of the southeast gate, running clear of the burning town and thraldom and into the welcome net of the scouts sent up here to bar them. And many go down under arrows, others simply kneel down, resigned to fate as they are captured or enthralled. And even out here in the dark with the skater Gungan, it's a piteous matter.
I think I'll take up position with these scouts, doing what we were sent here to do, and funnel those that escape from the south to the south. I'm hurt, so I'm trying to just maintain a distance while occupying my position.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone is running, I'm gonna fire at them, and if they're surrendering, take a proper course of action.
Mm-hmm. Hangatir, you watch like a Valkyrie descend and drive Odin's spear through the belly of like this alpha kin that wriggles and spits like a legged snake beneath you.
I'm going to climb on top of him, and I'm going to pummel him with my fists, and then I'm going to try and bite his tongue out after he's dead so that he can't do any more curses. So I'm just going to unarmed attack him twice.
Please do.
So that is 14, which might miss.
That misses. Yeah, he's a snake. He wriggles aside with Loki's knowledge.
He's prone too, just in case.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
so I'm just rolling even. That second one is a crit.
That'll definitely hit him. I kind of hope you don't do too much damage to him, so you can give him something terrible.
So I have a D4. Sorry for the noise.
No, it's good.
Somewhere down here is a D4. There we go. Okay. So 3 and 2 is 5 plus 4, so 9.
Okay. Unluckily for him, that's not enough to kill him. So can I please get a D20, my lord?
Yes, sir. A 16.
You smash your fist right into the nose of your enemy with a sickening thud. The nose is broken instantly and there is a spray of blood. He must make a con save, which he fails, and is blinded for 1 round as tears flood his eyes. So he's prone, blind, and broke-nosed, and nearly slain.
Perfect. That's it for me.
Oh, gosh. That's it for me. Gunnaldr. You see this foe that like was so close in a different parallel skein to taking your head, but instead is just losing his own life inch by pulpy inch here.
Yeah, I think Gunnaldr is eager to see him, send him down to the corpse ripper for putting a curse on him. So I think he would. I mean, I imagine Hangatir's like got him pinned down. He's like crouched on him, right, just like wailing on the dude. But so I guess from the side, Gunnaldr will try and just come over and see if he can skewer him in the neck or something. See how we go. Is that advantage because he's prone?
Certainly, and because he's blind, and because he's flanked.
Yeah. All right, nice. That'll be a 23 to hit.
Yeah, describe his ending.
Yeah, so Hangatir's just like busted his nose and the red blood fresh from his face splatters onto Gunnaldr's own red boots, which are covered in mud and blood from the battlefield as it is, as he sort of cinematically steps up and gets the blood splatter on him, and the din sort of quietens down as we focus on this little scene here with just Gunnaldr, Hangatir, and the guy, sorry, I got his name here, Modolf. And between punches, I think Gunnaldr just spits down at the ground next to him and just sticks his sword through the guy's neck, and blood from his throat and mouth joins that from his nose as he drowns.
Yeah, the life goes out of him, and he's putty beneath you, Hangatir, such that you can grab him up by his heads, close as lovers, and bite out his tongue to spit it out, gather up, to burn. And as you rise, men with bloody spears, axes, and swords raise it up to the stars and begin to cry for Odin, for Thor, who blessed them with victory, for Karl Erik, who led them, or for Gunnaldr, who has seized Sudbrand, as they will say. and a great raw exultation of victory drowns out the horrible sounds of the wounded and the doomed and the piteous. And thereafter, Hangatir and his scouts can bring back the captured thralls and prisoners for a judging at dawn to come. Some weeks down the track when we play Nameless next, but I think that's a good place to end it with victory, victory, Gunnaldr, Gunnaldr.
And half a faith, I think.